neurodiversity. Kim, can you tell us what neurodiversity is?
Yeah, I've actually got an article. You want me to throw that up?
Yeah, let's do that. Let's go there.
So,
let me check out something. Yeah, there we go.
can you?
Tina was good. I see you in the chat. Alexis Carney, good to see y'all in the chat. Appreciate y'all for coming through. Joe Jepchi on Instagram says, who's sick here? I am sick. I don't know if you're asking about who in the live stream is sick, but I am sick. We're gonna talk a little bit about neurodiversity, then we're gonna kind of go in order, and I'm gonna tell you guys, give you an update on Ray, last, our co-host, and then we'll get into to reacting to some videos and jump straight into this conversation.
Okay. So neurodiversity describes the idea that people experience and interact with the world around them in many different ways. There's no one right way of thinking, learning, and behaving, and differences aren't viewed as deficits. The word neurodiversity refers to the diversity of all people, but it's often used in the context of autism spectrum disorder, ASD, as well as other neurological or developmental conditions such as ADHD or learning disabilities. Do you want me to keep going? Because we've got the...
No, that's good. So I really wanted to also, did you ever look up, this is kind of a side note, did you ever look up, because somebody mentioned in the chat that like maybe the person who coined the term neurodiversity or neurodivergent, it might have been problematic or something. I don't know. Did you ever look into that?
I made a note too.
I did, right, same, and I forgot. I totally forgot to do it. So maybe we'll get into that a little bit later. But okay, so that's what we're gonna talk about. I just kind of wanted to define it for a second because that's kind of really what the entire conversation is about today. It includes autism spectrum disorder. It includes ADHD. It includes other learning disabilities, other developmental disabilities like dyslexia, dyspraxia, even OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder. It includes a number of diagnoses. That's what we'll call them right now, because some are considered disorders, some are not. But it includes a number of neurodevelopmental, whatever you want to call it. Basically, it's folks whose brain processes information, processes things in ways that are quote unquote atypical. And the reason I say atypical is because I actually have a theory, or I have a speculation or a suspicion that our world is more diverse in terms of neurodiversity than we actually think, right? So right now it is believed that at least up to 20%, 15 to 20% of the population is neurodivergent, right? I actually think it's more like, so the idea is like 80% of brains think this way and 20% of brains, I shouldn't say think, but operate this way. And I actually have a feeling it's more like, several different ways. I think we're going to kind of discover that as we learn more about the brain. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a neuroscientist. That's just like my thinking, right? Kind of like the thought or information about ASD has evolved over time, right? They kind of thought it was this very one thing, and the more they studied and learned about it, the more we realized, oh, it's the spectrum, it covers this, and so that's, I don't know, that's my theory. I don't know. But that's what we're gonna talk about today. Okay, so real quick, let me tell you a little bit about why Kimmy's here today. Kimmy's here to help me out to have this conversation, because I thought it was a timely conversation. I wanted to have it while this like Amanda Seales thing is percolating on the internet, on the internet streets. So I wanted to, kind of have it right now. But for those of you who were here last time, those of you who have asked about Ray and where he's been, he is kind of MIA right now. I think he's got some like personal stuff going on. To be honest, I don't have like really much information to give, and the information that I do have feels private and not like for me to share. And so I will just say, we have heard from him now, and I think he's just kind of like taking care of some personal business right now. And so hopefully we will see him back one day with the project, or I don't really know. But I did want to update that like he's alive. Well, I will say he's alive, and I don't want to like speak to like how well he is or unwell, because I really don't know. But like I said, he's kind of dealing with some personal stuff. But he's alive and safe. Let me say that he's alive and safe, because that was a concern last time. We just hadn't heard from him. We were trying to hold him. So thank you to everybody who's like checked in, asked for updates, so forth and so on. That's about all the updates I got for right now. If he wants to like come and share at some point more, he will do so. But I do appreciate everybody who sent thoughts, good wishes, prayers, good thoughts, kept me in your meditations and stuff. We appreciate it. And that actually, let me just say this. That led me to, I'm trying to think about how to word this. I'm trying to word this carefully. Back in 2014, I went MIA, right? Like I understand going MIA for self-preservation, for self-care, like for whatever reason, and kind of just like not telling anybody. I did that back in 2014, around Thanksgiving of 2014, around Christmas time actually. I just went ghost. And this was at a time, now I don't know who would notice, right? But at that time I was on the internet all the time. It was part of what I did for work. We were running the Visibility Project, which you can see at the visibilityproject.com. I believe it's still up. Kimmy, was it up when you went last time? Was it still up, the Visibility Project?
Yeah, I pulled it up when we were, do you want me to pull it up now?
No, you don't have to. So we were doing that, right? And it was like a new thing, and we had anybody, let's see. Oh, you can see this poster right here. That is a film called Dear White People by Justin Simeon. And when we first heard about that project, I'm going to skip forward and go past that because it's not totally relevant. But the point is, I was doing a lot on the internet at the time. A lot of my work involved being online all the time. And so when I went ghost, actually, a couple people reached out and was like, hello, are you okay? Where have you been? Like, you just stopped posting one day. I haven't heard from you. Like, what's going on? And I didn't respond for several months. Because I didn't have my phone initially. I so really don't want to talk about this, but I've never talked about this. This is not something I've ever spoken about publicly. This is not something I've told a lot of people about. Anybody who was like in my life and close to me at the time knows, but anybody that I've met since then, I will say Kimmy is the first person that I really kind of told about this. Kimmy and you got actually. But Thanksgiving of 2014, my OCD, which I had been diagnosed with back in 2006, was at an all-time high. It was out of control, but I didn't know it was out of control. Like I was just trotting along, thinking everything was going okay. I knew I was getting more and more stressed. I felt like I was drowning. Like I don't know how to say it. Like I was raised. I describe my mom as and anybody who has immigrant parents understands this. Every time I've ever heard somebody who has immigrant parents describe their parents, it reminds me so much of my mom. So I basically say like I have a mom who was like an immigrant mom in terms of the strictness, in terms of the expectations. I was supposed to be a doctor. Like I had a very prescribed path for me. And I was constantly involved in stuff. And I had a bunch of extracurricular activities. I went to private school my whole life. When I tell people I started preparing for the SATs in second grade, like a lot of people laugh, but like I'm not joking. Actually, I'm serious. Like like I had hooked on phonics as a kid, not because I was behind in reading, but because it was like you need to be prepared, right? Like I had mom. I wouldn't say she was intensely strict, but she had very high expectations for me. And so I'm saying that to say my entire life I had just been working because it was working to get to college. And then in college you are preparing to have a job and be successful in the real world. And I also grew up in a household like many other households of color where you are not grown until you are self-sufficient, until you are living on your own, until you are taking care of yourself. And so I was so eager to be grown, right? And a lot of that is because like my gender was being policed and like or my gender presentation and like I started to have very different values than my parents. And so I just been constantly working on go mode. Started my first nonprofit organization as a sophomore in college, and kept doing advocacy work up until that point. And then I started doing music full time, and then I was on tour, and I was just constantly on go. And I kind of looked up one day in 2014 when I was like so stressed and feeling like I was about to lose my mind, like I was like gonna drown, but like on land. And I'm trying to figure out what was going on. Mind you, I'd already been diagnosed in 2006, but there's a reason. And I was diagnosed in April 2006, and that was actually on accident. It's because I had sort of an episode while I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for something related to sickle cell, and apparently I kind of like freaked out about losing something being out of place. And the nurse called psych. Psych came and sat down with me and was like, "Have you ever heard of OCD?" And I was like, "Yeah, I've heard of it." He was like, kind of suggested that I might have it. And I was like, have you ever seen the MTV show True Life, or was that what's called True Life? And they used to show like
True Life. They used to do like little MTV versions of documentaries for an episode.
And that's where I saw OCD, right? Never mind that as a kid, I already looked it up because I was trying to figure out why I was so scared of phone calls, why I couldn't make phone calls. There were these things about me that my mom was saying, that's not normal. Now, mind you, I don't know that yet. I'm an introvert. I'm also being raised by a mom who is the textbook definition of an extrovert, but also like a social butterfly, super high femme, and just opposite of her in every way. And so there were all these things about me that she was saying was not normal. Like, why can't you talk on the phone? That's ridiculous. Like, she just kind of thought that I was just, or I would get in trouble for going through the door and having to touch the door frame, right? And so I had fingerprints all over the house. I'm jumping up to touch the door frame. I am jumping because I'm little as hell, right? But I can't do it. So I'm getting in trouble for doing it. She said, stop doing that. But I can't stop. Like I physically, like I don't know if you've ever like had this feeling, but like I knew my mind was saying don't do it, right? And when I would go through the door and not do it, I just had this feeling that was like, no, you have to go back and do it. Like you have to go back. If you don't go back and do it, like bad things are gonna happen, right? And I'm not gonna get into like my specific intrusive thoughts, but so I already had these things and I already looked it up and I saw the suggestion of OCD and I was like, that's ridiculous. But what I did pull out was like phonophobia, like a phobia of the phone. I remember telling it to my mom and her just being like, that's ridiculous. That's not a thing. Get out of here, right? So I kind of pushed it away. And I got diagnosed in 2006 because something happened while I was in the hospital for a chronic illness. And my response was, no, I'm not like the people on MTV. No, I've seen what OCD looks like. I'm nothing like that. Like they're ridiculous. Like I'm not like that. What I didn't know at the time was that I have a version of OCD called Puro, where a lot of my rituals and repetitions and things are more mental, where there's a lot of counting internally, right? So you don't see them. So I'm not turning the doorknob this many times. I'm not cleaning up constantly. So I don't have OCD, right? And so so 2014, I'm doing this internship with Issa Rae's publicist. I'm jumping ahead a bit. So diagnosed 2006, it's now 2014. I graduated from college, and I'm doing an internship for Issa Rae's publicist, but it's an unpaid internship, and I'm essentially working this internship full time. It's supposed to be a PR internship, right? That's what I went to school for, and I'm like drowning because I'm doing this internship, kind of putting in full time hours, but not getting paid for it. So that means I still have to work to make money, right? I've just moved to LA, which is expensive as hell. So I'm doing that full time, working with my own clients full time. Excuse me. And then we were running the visibility project, right? So I'm doing these three like really kind of full-time jobs. And the reason I kind of tell you about like my childhood and the fact that I was go is because my thinking at the time, I'm drowning, right? And I'm thinking, oh, well, it's because I haven't had a day off in like 4 years, right? Like I thought back, when's the last time I had a day off? When's the last time I just didn't work and I didn't worry about what I had to do? And I was like, oh, it's been at least 4 years. It's been at least 4 years. I just need a day off. I just need a break. That's what it is. I'm about to be burnt out. I just need a break. And so I tell my boss for the internship, Issa Rae publicist, I'm going home for Thanksgiving. It's the only holiday I celebrate. It's my favorite holiday. I'm going home. I'll be back before Christmas. I don't celebrate Christmas. I'll be back before Christmas. That was the plan. That was absolutely 100% the plan. That is not at all what happened. I went home for Thanksgiving. I kind of remember having Thanksgiving. And then I remember being in my granny's guest room, which is my mom's childhood bedroom, actually, and it just being dark, like all the windows being closed. And I guess a couple days had passed. And finally, my granny came in and was like, are you okay? Like, what's happening, right? And at this time, my family knows I'm an introvert, so they know they can leave me alone for a period of time and I'm fine, like, right? So I think that's why it took her a couple days to be like, hello, are you okay? But then she kind of realized, like, you have not left this room, not to use the bathroom, not to get anything to drink. What are you doing? And apparently I was like sleeping the whole time. I'm saying apparently because a lot of this has been relayed to me because I don't remember it, because I ended up crashing. I try not to use the word like nervous breakdown or like mental crash, but I don't know what else to call it. And I just remember texting our managing editor at the time for the visibility project and saying, you're in charge. I'm gonna be out for a minute. I don't remember my words exactly, but I essentially was telling her, hey, something's happening. I don't know what. You're in charge. You got it. I'll be in touch when I can. And I think she was just kind of like, okay. But she did it, right? She handled that. The next thing I remember is being in the middle of the street. And I think it was my granny like calling out to me and she's like, what are you doing? Like, so somebody had called her and was like, I think your granddaughter is in the middle of the street, like whatever. So my granny's calling me. Then the next thing I remember is being in the emergency room and the doctor asked me what's wrong. And I'm telling my brain to respond and I can't. Like nothing will come out. Like, I don't know if y'all have ever heard of like selective mutism. I'm not saying that that's what I have, but what I'm saying is like, I understand it because I understand like telling your brain to say something or telling your brain to do something and your body just will not do it. And I just remember I couldn't speak and I just started to freak out. Like I'm trying to respond. And I look at my mom and like tears will just start streaming down my face. And she's just like, okay, hang on, I got it. She had contacted her friend to basically try to find out how to get me help, like in like record time, right? Because there's a waiting list for this program that her friend was telling her about that she had done with her son, and she said there's a waiting list, and I guess my mom said like, no, we can't do waiting lists, like we need like help right now. So she tells her what to do. Long story short, I have to basically be in like a psych board or whatever, and then I can as an inpatient, I would get priority for the wait list, right? So I end up getting 5150, which for those who don't know, in California, that's the penal code that covers basically being able to commit somebody in a mental hospital without their consent, right? Even though like I consented to it because I knew that this was the plan, right? So I'm just like kind of trusting my mom at this point. So I'm on this 72-hour hold where you get help for 72 hours. I don't remember much of that. I remember going in to talk to the psychiatrist and then somebody asking me about it and me saying, I was only in there for like 5 or 10 minutes, and then coming back and them showing me something that proved I had talked to him for over an hour, and I don't remember any of it. And there's like so little of what I remember until I got to the point where I was in an intensive outpatient program. And essentially an intensive outpatient program, or at least this one, was 5 days a week, 8 hours a day. Like you're going to job, your work or school. And I'm in this program. By this time, it's like January. Mind you, I was supposed to go home for Thanksgiving and come back before Christmas. It's now January, and that's really like the first memories that I have. My OCD diagnosis was confirmed, but that was also confirmed with, like obviously general anxiety, but also major depressive disorder for the first time. And it's part of why I'm so against unpaid labor and like free labor, because I just didn't realize how detrimental doing what I was doing was to me. And I don't know, Kim, you can tell me like how much you think I should, like, because you kind of have more of the details now about like the nature of the internship. I'm not really sure like how much context I need to provide.
Well, I think that it's unfortunately a somewhat common story that people take advantage of internships, and you're thinking that it's going to be one thing where you're learning a lot and you're making a lot of connections and it blossoms into a job and then a career, but then it doesn't. Yeah. So did it turn into what you were hoping that it would be at any point?
It definitely did not. It did not. I wasn't even doing what I was expecting to do. I'm not gonna say what I should have been doing, but I wasn't doing what I expected to do, which was, it was supposed to be a PR internship, right? But I was really doing like graphic design stuff, behind the scenes photos. And I was really kind of like, as an overachiever, right? I'm trying to like really do extra. So, hey, can you do this thing? Yes. And I'll do it to the best of my ability, and I'll get it done in record time. So things that should have taken 3 to 5 days, I was getting done in 24 hours. Things that should have taken a week, I was getting done in like a day and a half. Like I was sleeping like 3 to 4 hours a night, right? Because I'm doing this stuff for the internship, then coming home. Mind you, I'm on the road in LA traffic for at least an hour and a half commuting, right? And I get home and then I'm working on stuff for my clients and I'm doing other stuff. But, and this is the reason I mentioned, like, I didn't know like my OCD was at an all-time highs, because I was constantly working, but I wasn't being productive. You know what I mean? Like I was rearranging my desktop and making sure every file was in the right place and making sure every little thing, like all my programs were up to date. Like I was just doing everything but the work, but I could not get to the work until I did the things that my OCD was saying you needed to do. But no, I never got to what I thought. It never manifested into what I thought it would manifest into, right? And mind you, somebody else who I had come to know through doing the visibility project put me in touch with the publicist. I sort of asked her to connect me with somebody else, and she gave me advice, which I don't actually agree with to this day, but like she gave me some advice saying like, hey, you just need to focus on one thing, become a master expert in that one thing, and then you can add something else. And so in fear, what I really wanted to be doing was music, but I think I was like scared that if I said that, I don't know what I was scared of, but I think I was scared. So I didn't say music. So I said, well, PR, because that's what I went to school for. That's what I was kind of doing with the visibility project, like PR, producing type stuff. So I was like, well, I'll do PR. So she linked me up with this PR internship, but I didn't do like any PR intern stuff. Like I remember going to a celebrity's house in the hills, not having any gas money, right? Like no money, because I used my savings to move out here. First month, last month, security deposit, you need furniture, you need to move down here, all those things. So I'm like going to work an hour and a half every day, going way up in the hills, thinking my car's barely gonna make it. And then you have that like gentle hazing stuff, which is like, well, I'm paying for lunch, so one of y'all gotta drive, or do this and do that. Like it was just like, I remember doing, I designed the invitations for like a baby shower for somebody she knew, right? Like something that had nothing to do with like, I was just not doing what I thought I was gonna be doing. And I remember telling the person who connected me with the publicist, like, I think I'm being taken advantage of here. And I say that because she'd already told me that, like, actually, I don't know if she told me or it was one of the other interns, but I essentially found out that prior to my coming there, whenever one of their clients needed graphic design work, they would outsource that work. And, you of course you have to pay for that. And then, so the client pays them extra, whatever. I'm actually not getting into the weeds on that. But the point was like, I was sort of saving money. Like my point is like, I was adding value to this agency. I remember like updating their one sheet and like doing all these things. And like, that was all fine and great and dandy, but I felt like I was doing more graphic design work and photography work. And like, she did like write me a couple of checks for $500, which is really to me confirmed like, oh yeah, okay, I'm probably saving you a good little coin here. And I remember telling the person that connected me, hey, I think I'm being taken advantage of. And I was looking for advice. Like I didn't know how to handle it. I didn't know what to do. Because for those of you who don't know, you can't just be saying anything and everything when you work in the industry. You can't just be calling anybody and everybody out. Like you got to be careful what you say. Like you will get blackballed with the quickness, right? Because the industry is all about who you know. And I remember telling Kimmy this, and like I was like, she was like, I think I might be giving like the industry too much credit. And I was like, you're giving the industry way too much credit. Like when we say like it's not a meritocracy and it's about who you know, I cannot emphasize that enough. Like it is absolutely about who you know. Like for better or for worse, like if I was to do a project today and I get $1 million to hire my whole crew and hire whoever I want, I'm gonna hire the people I'm gonna hire the people I know. So on one hand I get that, but again that has a double-edged sword, because you piss off the wrong person, or you get labeled, as we're gonna talk about today, difficult, or somebody who causes problems and who makes waves, right? Like you're not gonna get a good reference. Like if anything, they're gonna say one sentence and then that's a wrap, right? So I don't think I got anything out of it, but more than that, I felt I don't know what the right word is here, but like when I reached out and said, hey, I think I'm being taken advantage of, or like, I don't think this is going how it's supposed to be going. Also, I forgot to mention somebody else in the industry. I was meeting with them for something else. We were supposed to be covering one of their projects. And I was telling, we were just asking, catching up, hey, how you doing? What's been going on? And I was telling them about the internship, and they kind of started making faces like, you're working how many days a week? Wait, how many hours you're not getting paid? That don't, and like in so many words, because again, everybody knows everybody. So I feel like she can't just say flat out, that's not right. That's not legit. You should ask about that. That's not okay. Right. And through so many words, she kind of like wink, wink, nudge, nudge. That's not normal. I never had an internship. I didn't know. it started to be confirmed more and more like, oh yeah, this is not legit. And it might be typical for the industry. I'm not saying it's atypical. And by no means am I saying like, oh, I was abused and like, this is not how it normally goes. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is, what I experienced is probably what plenty of other people experience. The difference is, as somebody with a chronic illness, like that doesn't work for me, right? Like I can't maintain 3 jobs. Like just physically, I cannot do that. Never mind mentally, spiritually, whatever, emotionally. Like physically, I cannot maintain this. So, but yeah, that's why I went ghost, right? Like this thing happened. I had this like sort of mental crash. I call it the Great Crash of 2014, and I was ghost from 2014, like Thanksgiving of 2014. Also, mind you, this person, never mind. I was gonna talk about how they sort of insinuated that I lied, but it doesn't matter. But I will say I was not totally believed about like being in the hospital or whatever. But anyway, I called the Great Crash 2014 from Thanksgiving to 2014 to like April or May of 2015. I was just gone. Like I had nobody knew where I was except the people who needed to know, my core, my team, core family members, whatever. So that reminded me of something Amanda Seales talks about, because Amanda Seales, who is an actor, she's a poet, a comedian, a bunch of things. Somebody who actually I first met in New Orleans when I was doing music. I opened for her one night, back when she was still going by Amanda Diva. And while the internet was piling on her, it became clear, we have like a fundamental misunderstanding of neurodivergence in this country, like or in society, right? I don't know if it's just this country, but like people do not understand neurodiversity. People do not understand what it means to be neurodivergent, or how it looks and how it manifests in women, in people of color, especially Black women, anybody except white males, right? And so that's how we got to this conversation today. Because while most of the internet, and apparently Amanda is polarizing, I don't really watch a lot of her content, so I don't know why people dislike her so much. I just know that apparently she's very polarizing is the word that has been used. I'm not a fan. I don't dislike her. I don't know enough about her. I'm largely like, what's the word? Apathetic, indifferent, I guess. But so I'm saying like this is not me defending Amanda Seales, because I don't know enough about her to be defending her. Like I don't know if like she has done stuff in the industry behind the scenes to people, and like this industry wide hate is warranted. I don't know. I just know that neurodivergent folks are catching strays. That's what I keep saying. Is because the conversation I'm seeing online, people are talking about self-diagnosing and how that's a problem, or it makes it a diagnosis like not legit. Neurodivergent people are catching strays, and I think it's because we don't understand what neurodivergence looks like. Not for real. Not for anybody other than white males. So that's what we're gonna talk about today. All right. So where should we start? Let me see. Let me pull up my cards here. What's next on the
well, we've got you gave a little bit of the background. We have the condemning video if you wanted to jump into that, since we're already talking about Amanda.
Yeah, that's next. So let's hop into that. If you want to pull that up, I'll pull up the outline for myself. Let's see, we got comments. Oh man, I don't know where to let me go back a little bit. Okay, I feel ignorant, but I didn't realize. I'm gonna read a few comments while you pull it up. Okay, I feel ignorant, but I didn't realize Dear White People was a film, as I only saw the Netflix series. Definitely gotta watch that. Yeah, I've not seen the series. I think I've watched a couple of episodes of season 1, but I did not really watch it. I kind of wanted to, but I really couldn't. Even though I know a lot of healing now, I couldn't watch it at the time. You haven't seen the series or the film?
No, but to be fair, I don't watch a whole lot of things. I'm pretty culturally ignorant.
Got you. Alexis Carney says, you sharing your story has aligned with a lot of moments in my life of processing my mental health for me, and I really think this live could help others process their mental health. I certainly hope so. That is it's the only reason I'm sharing it, because I have avoided sharing that and talking about it for the longest. Yeah. All right, let's see anything else. I so agree with the music industry. Yeah. Okay, you ready? You got it ready? Okay, I'm ready when you are. Oh, wait, let me see. I'm wondering if I need to set up. This is not the one I thought it was, but that's my fault. That's completely my fault. Hold on 1 second. Let me just see if it's cool that we go out of order. Hold on 1 second. Because you know what? Yeah, let's do this. Because the reason that I brought this up, the reason that I included this video is just to talk about the fact that uninformed bias is dangerous, right? Like we all have biases, okay? Understandable. You're gonna have biases. Very often on the internet, whatever story you hear first, that's the one that people believe. And then the other person, the other side has to kind of come back and try to like counteract that. And then if you don't have receipts, it's a problem, right? But this take right here is what happens when there's uninformed bias. Now there's gonna be like a good amount of misinformation and lack of context that's gonna change things. So we're gonna pause it here and there. But yeah, let's just start playing it. This is by, I'm not familiar with this creator. I saw this when I was like kind of doing research trying to find out what was going on with the Amanda Seales situation. This is Amanda Seales condemns Issa Rae, and this is a reaction. So this is actually a reaction video to another channel's video, and I believe the channel is Impressive. I believe it's impressive, like Empress, like EMPRESS. Impressive, I think. But let's just get started. Now this is Amanda's
that we're looking at right now.
Yeah. And this is, so it's kind of a, what do you call it, meta or whatever? I don't know what that's called. But it's like, so the person on the screen in the bottom left is, I think their name is D Chanel, if I'm not mistaken. They're reacting to a video by a channel called Impressive. Impressive is reacting to this interview with Amanda Seales and Shannon Sharpe. And there's a reason that I'm showing this one as opposed to Impressive's video or just the interview with Amanda Seales and Shannon Sharpe. And you'll see why in just a second. This is basically about uninformed bias and like how dangerous it is, or how dangerous it is when like there's a certain narrative out there about a person, and whether it's accurate or inaccurate. Like this take that she has is intense. Let me just say that it's intense. So yeah, we play it.
Impressive had Amanda Seales condemns Issa Rae. Okay, she's also talking about the Megan Thee Stallion situation, but I read to a video addressing that, so I'm just gonna watch the portion about Amanda Seales. So yeah, let's see what's going on and why she's speaking out against Issa. Let's watch.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Impressive channel. Recently, Amanda Seales sat down with Shannon Sharpe on his club Shay Show. Anytime somebody sits down with Shannon, he knows something's spilled and somebody's about to be exposed. Well, this interview was no different because Amanda Seales talked about her rift with her former boss and co-star from Insecure, Issa Rae. And her real issue was really with Issa Rae's publicist, Vanessa. Now, Amanda felt like Issa was being rude to her and she didn't like her. And Amanda tolerated it.
Why she keep trying to drag Issa into this?
Went to this Black Ladies party that was hosted by Vanessa. Amanda was actually invited as a +1. So she arrived at the party,
She
but
wasn't
Vanessa
invited?
had 4 security guards take her out of the party. And this, of course, infuriated Amanda, and she ranted about it online a few years ago. And after she ranted about this, she slowly started getting backlash from Black media, and she started getting blackballed from certain spaces.
Very interesting. I don't remember the details of this. I didn't talking about it, but if the girl didn't want you at her party, she didn't want you at her party. Maybe she didn't want you like that. You do have an intense personality. It's not for everybody, so she didn't want you there. And you pull it as somebody else's +1,
Okay,
and you're not even on the guest list to be invited.
Okay, so let's just start with there's a couple things already that I've wanted to say, but let's just start with you do have an intense personality, right? Okay, now we're talking about a celebrity, we're talking about a public figure, so maybe in general situation you would say like you don't really know her, whatever, but she's a public figure and I think she does like a lot of content, like she posts on social media a lot, she does a lot of live streams, so okay, she has an intense personality. Kimmy, how would you define an intense or even strong? I hear a lot. What would you say is an intense or strong personality?
Loud, overbearing. Like just kind of taking over the whole room and conversation and situation and whatever is happening. Now it's not.
Okay. And that's interesting. There's a reason I asked, right? Because recently somebody had said I had a strong personality, right? It's not the first time I've heard it.
Did my sound cut out?
Huh? What's happening?
Okay, sorry, you cut out. It might have been me, but you're back now.
Okay. Oh, yo. All right, I think we are here. I think we're live. Oh, not again. See, this is why I let Kimmy, I let our stage manager handle things, because already I've got this mess, this black box around us. Let's see. Why is it cropped? Kimmy, if you know why it's cropped, let me know. I'm just gonna get started here. What up, y'all? Thank y'all for joining us for this live recording. We're gonna be recording this live per usual, but then we'll be chopping it up and sharing it a bit. Oh man, I'm gonna probably have to close my door, and that's all right. So let's get started. I got some things happening in the background while we wait for folks to arrive. Should have left my phone over there. See who we got in the chat already. Who do we have here live? Alexis Carney, what's good? How you doing? How you living? How is it down there in NOLA, New Orleans? Oh, that's not right. Yeah, let Kimmy do it so you can blame her. Yeah, nah, I'm not gonna do that. It's definitely me with the tech issues. All right, so we got some folks joining us live. Let me go ahead and make sure we're live on IG as well. We do stream in multiple locations. Oh man, you know what? I don't know. Did I mess up? Let's see if we can do this. Oh, I think we can do it. We're live on IG now. Sweet. Alexis Carney says, me, myself, and I am here. Thank you. I think Kimmy fixed it for me already. Look at that. I appreciate it. All right, let's go ahead and get started. We got some guests joining us. Wow. We got some guests joining us tonight. But I'm going to go ahead and get started right now. I feel like I'm crooked. Why do I feel like I'm sitting sideways, y'all? We finally got the tech right, and now I feel like I'm not right. Like, what is going on? Okay, well, let's just go there. All right. Waiguruji Kakosa, Waiguruji Ki Fate. What up, y'all? Smalls here. Coming to you from Chumash and Tongvaland. You know what? Let's see. Let me pause that because I want to make sure. Good to see you. I bet it is. It's May, so we're at. I paused the intro. So if we seem a little bit all over the place, that's why. But no worries. We're recording. That's what editing is for. Let's see. I want to make sure. Give me 1 second, y'all. I want to make sure our guests are good to go. I don't want to just be sitting here in y'all face and on y'all like that. definitions. Just like the response that you gave was completely different than the response that Ray gave, right? So Ray and I were talking about something, and he said, he kind of like prefaced it with like, now I don't think this, but I'm just, I'm just saying or whatever. And I kind of knew what was coming.
Like, no offense, but
Right. So based on what we were talking about, I already knew what was coming, right? And sure enough, he said, you have a strong personality. Now, like I said, not the first time I've heard it, but everybody seems to have a different definition. His was, you're confident, you're assertive. It wasn't necessarily negative things, right? Now, they were traits that are considered more masculine, though, right? Like traits that are typical of men in leadership positions, right? The assertive, the direct, the clear communication, the high expectation, like stuff like that. It was, so when I Googled it, and I think if you Google it, like all of the things that I got somewhat matched his. It was kind of like an in between his and yours, right? So apparently there's like a wide spectrum of that. But here's what I'll say: there are a good number of people who are neurodivergent who get this response or label. But you know who never gets the you have a strong personality label or description?
white men.
Men don't get told they have a strong personality. Like that's expected. It's expected that you have a strong personality, right? And even though like some might hear the definition or when somebody describes like all of the traits that Ray gave, I don't see as negative. When I Googled it, most of them I didn't seem like negative to me. And yet it's often like levied at me in a negative way as a like a here's why X, here's why you rub people the wrong way, here's why people are intimidated, here's why XYZ, because you have a strong personality, despite the fact that like these aren't like inherently negative traits, right? But again, this is something that happens like a lot with like neurodivergent folks, but neurodivergent women. Also, does the creator of this, the person reacting, do you feel like she like maybe has a bias? Just from what we've seen already?
I mean, yeah, I was about to say she kind of seems like she has a strong personality, but based on how we just like defined it and prefaced it, that's probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I disagree, right? Like I don't know enough about her to say one way or the other. Like this might be a one-off, right? It's hard to say with less than like a minute of stuff, right? Yeah. But like, yeah, she's very like her opinion at least is very strong, right? Is very like and again, I don't think any of this is bad. I do not think any of this is inherently bad. I just find it interesting that it's like, you do have a strong personality. And I'm like, well, what does strong personality mean to you? Because the way that I usually hear it, it would seem like maybe like you're not far off from that, but like you're sort of saying it in a way that makes it seem like negative or unappealing, let's say. But also what I kind of noticed right away, at least for me, this is my perception of it, was that like she's not a fan of Amanda Seales. Like she's not a fan of Amanda Seales, right? Like she was like, oh, this again, and I don't know. Like this was the first video I saw where the bias sort of like jumped out. Like most of the other creators that I've seen talk about it, King of Reads, Jesse Wu, Stephanie from Wine and Chill, they seem to be like a little bit more neutral. Or even if they had like a bias one way or the other, it was like at least a presentation of neutral. Whereas this one seemed kind of like he's not here for Amanda Seales. I would not be surprised if there was a dragon coming. Not saying that that's what's happening, but I would just not be surprised. But yeah, unless you got any thoughts, we can keep going.
So how can you get upset? It's a party. It's not the end of the world. It's not a party. It's like, oh, so tragic. You couldn't stay at a party. Oh my God. So
okay, what am I doing wrong? Kimmy, please let me know what I'm doing wrong with why do I have the cinematic, not so cinematic black box around me every time? Okay, well, I'm gonna have to figure that out. Woo, let me take a deep breath. Okay, here we go. Thank y'all for joining us on this evening. Whew. Okay, I think we're ready. I think we got. Kimmy, can you hear me? Your thumbs up if you're good. We're good. Audra, you good? Can you hear? You're good. All right. Let's try this one more time. All right. Waheguru ka kausa, waheguru ki fate. What up, y'all? Smalls here. And I'm coming to you from Chumash and Tonga land. You can call me Smalls or Smalls. And my pronouns are she, her. I'm here on Chumash and Tonga land, which is Southern California, on the Big Turtle Island. And we got some guests joining us this evening who I'm going to, I always let our guests and co-hosts and everything introduce themselves. So I'm going to do that. This is sort of like a take 2 of the neurodivergent and Black conversation. And I'm excited, but also like possibly potentially nervous for the first time because we have at least one person here who I'm like a legit, like actual, for real major like fan of, right? Who I've been like lurking on the low. But when we first did this topic, we kind of just did it like spur of the moment because of what was happening with the Amanda Seales situation. And so we didn't do as much planning as I really wanted to do. And so I immediately after that stream, I talked to Kimmy and I said, I want to redo this. And I want to make sure we do it right and record it so that we have this content to use for future purposes, for advocacy things, like that and such as, and so I spent a while trying to figure out who would be great guests, right? For this particular conversation. And so luckily we got 2 of them. One I actually just discovered pretty recently. And part of that is probably because I'm not on TikTok, but I happened to be checking our notifications on TikTok and I ran across this creator and I saw a video of theirs. They were responding to the Amanda Seales situation, and I may or may not, my eyes may or may not have sweated a little bit, okay? Because it was just so like I could relate to everything that they were saying. And so we're going to play that video for you later tonight. But before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and bring upon our guests as well as introduce our stage manager. So first up, I'm going to introduce Kimmy. For those of y'all who don't already know Kimmy, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people.
Hello, I'm Kimmy, she, her. I'm the stage manager here at Black and Sick, and I've got my tech all set up. I did contingency plans for backups in case anything happens. I am ready for this one.
Yo, I'm looking for all the wood to knock on. For those of y'all who don't know, Kimmy's tech like hates her. Kimmy's equipment is not a fan of Kimmy. Is like be revolted the moment we go live. It never fails. So we're knocking on wood. We got some rude neighbors.
They're revolted.
Right. But anyways, we're gonna hope for the best, right? I'm speaking into existence that everything's gonna go smoothly. We got some new tech in the building. Last couple weeks have been sort of mayhem getting this together, but I wanted to make sure we could do it right this time. And so that's what we're doing. And so let me bring on our next guest. And while they introduce themselves, I'm going to go ahead and close my door since my neighbors want to wild out. I'm going to be right back. But go ahead, introduce yourself to the people.
Hi, I'm Audra Reins. I'm the dreaded they, them. I just like to be a human in whatever form I can be a human. So, you know.
Yeah, and let me tell you right quick how I discovered Audra, right? Okay. So some of y'all know this, but I'm not a makeup person, okay? I struggle, okay? Like my makeup consists of foundation and like mascara, right? And I just got into this tinted lip balm, right?
Yes.
That's major for me, okay? I just, this tinted lip balm, which I actually really, really like. So anyways, I'm like looking for stuff, right? Right before we start this project, I'm like, oh, okay, I got to find makeup again because, as y'all know, it's not the easiest mission when you are, when you have a certain amount of melanin, right? And so I started the process like a few months before I knew we had to do before I had to go on camera again. And the people at Sephora, not helpful. I mean, just not helpful. So I took it upon myself to start doing my own research, right? And I just fell into a rabbit hole of like beauty content. And so I'm discovering all these like beauty channels. And one of them I discovered was Jen Loves, right? I think they used to go by Jen Loves Reviews, but I think the channel's called Jen Loves now. And they kept shouting and mentioning this person, Audra, right? They kept saying my friend Audra. And I'm like, who is this Audra, right? So then I click and I start watching videos and I'm like, oh, that's a friend that doesn't know we're friends. Like just immediately like, this is relatable. Must watch the gameplay on Twitch and some of the beauty and I love the commentary when they live stream. So a lot of times I'm playing their live streams while I'm working, right? And kind of like half being productive. It's like usually in the background. So I've been going through their catalog of content and it's been very fun and exciting.
There's a lot there. Oh my gosh.
There's a lot there.
Don't go too far back. It'll show how long I've been on this platform.
Okay, well now I'm going to like sort by oldest and start there. Now I have to go all the way back. And so we may have one more guest joining us on tonight. If not, we plan to have this conversation a couple of times. Like this is not going to be the only conversation we have about this. Because like I said before, I realized when this Amanda Seales kerfuffle happened that people who have the best of intentions and really think that they understand like what it is to be neurodivergent or neurospicy or whatever you want to call it, to have ADHD, to have to be on the spectrum, like a lot of people think they understand it better than they do. And so I was like, oh, that's not great. But what really made me say, oh no, we have to talk about this was when the topic of self-diagnosis came up, right? Because a lot of people hear self-diagnosis and sort of immediately want to invalidate the diagnosis or the symptoms even, right? Whatever. And a lot of people don't understand. I was watching a therapist earlier and we're going to play that video, but I was watching a therapist earlier who the video was so disappointing, but ultimately she was comparing diagnosing yourself with cancer to diagnosing yourself with like ADHD or being on the spectrum. And I was just like, no, absolutely
Doctor
not.
of medicine?
Yeah. This kind of stuff makes me like lose my entire mind because first of all, I actually have a friend. We've been friends since high school. We talk intermittently because she has children and I do not. But her husband's a doctor. just generally, if you felt like you had a cold, you've had a cold before, you tell the doctor when you go in, I think I have a cold. And then if they agree with you, great. If they think that there's something extra, they're like, "Ooh, you do have a cold, but there's something extra. We're going to need to do X, Y, Z to get there." They're going to do that. And then they're going to go, on top of the cold, you have this. When it comes to neurodivergencies, autism, ADHD, I know like those ones are going to be a little easier for you to kind of figure out. And most people who are doing that self-diagnosis have known for most of their life that there's something different. Like one of the reasons I'm non-binary is because I felt like an alien for my entire life. I was just like, I'm not a human being. I don't operate the way everyone else around me is operating. I don't understand what I'm doing wrong. Everybody thinks I'm quirky and fun. I am, but also
is
this isn't normal. And I knew early that it wasn't normal. I got diagnosed for ADHD when I was sitting there being like, I think I have ADHD. And that was, I feel like almost 10 years ago now.
Wow.
I actually only went because I did the ADHD because I was too afraid at the time to do autism. And now I won't do the autism because I can't move to another country sometimes if you're diagnosed autistic.
Oh, right. That's right.
Yeah, they'll say that you're a drain on their resources. So I'm like, cool. We'll just, but I knew then. And it's only been confirmed the more that I like live my life and go for it. I'm like, oh, this makes a lot more sense, because even when I had medication for ADHD, all of that, I was like, this still isn't working. And I don't know, I was correct. There's both of the things are there. And I don't know what to do.
Yeah. So there's a couple things I want to say. One, there are a myriad of reasons why self-diagnosis is valid, especially when it comes to neurodivergent matters and diagnoses. But one is, most of the time when people are self-diagnosing, when they're diagnosing themselves, this is not like usually like a whim, like a fly by night, just random. Like I think people really think, I've seen a few TikToks, diagnose myself, like, right? And that's usually not the case. Usually you've been thinking about this for a long time. You've been ruminating on it. You hear the symptoms and suddenly you goes, oh my goodness, this makes sense, right? And then you start to research and probably hyperfixate on it a little bit. And like, like you dig. I've not met anybody who like diagnosed themselves and said, I saw a few TikToks and I was like, that's me, right? It's usually, I have a folder this thick, I have a binder, I have this paper, I took this online quiz and I did this, and they're usually diving deep, right? That's one. Two, when you go in, so real quick, when you go in for a clinical diagnosis, a lot of the clinical diagnosis for autism and other things like ADHD is based on self-reported behavior, right? Correct. Like, because your doctor's not with you. So it's either if it's a child, because it's happened with my godson, right? It's the parents describing the behavior and answering the questions and self-reporting, right? Or when you go in as an adult, it's like, this and this and this. And like, so it's not like you're taking some blood test or putting your hand, like doing some type of Scientology, whatever that thing is called. That's the clinical diagnosis is based on self-reported behavior, right? So But
it's white men more than anything else. You know what I mean? So like everything in there is based on white men. So as Black women and femmes, we're not even listed in there. How we cope, our stims, all the things that we do that would, in a lot of people's eyes, make us seem quote unquote normal. But our families would call us the odd ones. Like in our families, we would be, a little odd, a little quirky, a little strange, but realistically, it's just like the other day, I had to message my friend and be like, I just did the most autistic thing I've done in a while, because my mom got me this ice cream. And she put it in my freezer. I opened it. It's not the one I normally get. And as I'm opening the package, I just go, I don't like to try new things. Like, I just say it out loud. Like, we're living in a world where we actually have access to see other people who have, and all that research we did beforehand, people didn't think they were autistic because of TikTok. People didn't think they had ADHD because of TikTok. People don't think they're bipolar or whatever because of TikTok. But all the research they did previously, and then they're seeing people talk to them about the very same issues you are running into. And you're like, oh, okay. Okay, I see now.
Exactly.
Right. It gives
Kimmy-
people like a shared vocabulary to be able to express things that they weren't able to before. Like I have ADHD. When I heard about time blindness, I was like, oh,
Yes.
that's what that is. And
Yes.
I'm still stuck on the cancer to ADHD comparison because cancer is
wild.
cellular, but ADHD or autism, that's how you interact with the world and with other people. Like you were
Absolutely.
saying about like what you were doing with the ice cream or with family and how it's self-reporting. It's because it's inherently external or internal what you're thinking and feeling. And cancer, one of the reasons it's so insidious is because you don't know until something happens sometimes. Like that's just such a ridiculous comparison to me.
It's wild.
Because I can't, because like you were saying, Kimmy, cancer is most of the time you have no idea that it's ravaging you. That's why it's like a silent killer, as they say, because you have no idea. You do know outwardly and inwardly all the issues that you are experiencing every single day of your life. So like the fact that if you saw this desk right now, embarrassing. And it's very difficult to keep things together when you have both autism and ADHD, because my autism is like, let's put everything in order. Let's make everything neat. Let's have this and this. And then my ADHD is like, who cares? Just like have stuff. Just have the stuff. It's fine.
Very that. So I want to play this video real quick. This creator mentions a couple things that we're talking about. So let's play, and that's going to be a lot of what we're talking about. What's going to happen tonight is we're going to play some content, and then we'll react to it, kind of chime in, give our feedback. So Audra, Kimmy, if we're playing anything and you want us to pause at any point to chime in and say something, feel free to just let me know at any point.
Okay.
All right, let's see.
First, when Leo Kanner coined the term infantile autism or Kanner's infantile autism, that he was just looking at boys, and then again Hans Asperger was looking at boys. But more recently than that, now obviously we've come a long way from there, and it's like 2023, and we have all these resources for girls that are coming out slowly. There's still a big long way to go, and I think that I did a video recently showing, it was an article saying there's probably more females on the autism spectrum than there are males, but we don't see that in the research because we're still trying to play catch up, which is a whole thing. But regardless of that, this specific news article which I read was actually talking about the gap or the lack of data for ethnic minorities, especially including Black women and girls, where there is a lack of data. Now this is down to a few different things. The article is emphasizing the fact that the diagnostic criteria and the tools were not adequately capturing the data of Black females. Now, this is down to things like the tools that they're using, or diagnostic criteria they're using, is not currently responsive to cultural differences and cultural identities, because obviously when you're dealing with culture, you have to take that into consideration when you're dealing with a person and a personality or a behavior-based trait or a condition like autism, because it is neurological and it is going to be impacted by the culture. There are now efforts to address this gap in data, or this lack of data between Black women and girls and autism, and I think how has it even gone on for this long? 2022, we don't have it. It really annoys me because, when you're a minority group of disabled people, when you're a minority group of women, and you're a minority group of, like ethnic minority, like you have a mega more important role to have that data out. Now, because that data isn't available, it's shocking to me. It really is shocking. But there is calls for the increase of inclusivity and diversity within autism research to actually accurately understand and support individuals who are Black and female, who are on the autism spectrum, and other kind of minority groups as well. But I think there's such a lot of research and scope in the area of females on the autism spectrum now. We're going to see a big shift in this, and I think what we're going to see is an increase in females being diagnosed, because there is a huge lack of data. Yeah. I can't believe that this is a thing. I mean, it's absolutely bonkers because it's like 2023, right? And we're still like, the girls have autism. Of course they can have autism. It's ridiculous. Guys, what are your thoughts on it? Pop me a comment down below. I read every single one. And also, if you are wanting to get ahead and get some mental health counseling, if you're struggling with mental health, there's a link in the description down below for.
All right, so there's a couple things I want to say. One, we do our best not to use minority, especially when it's not accurate. Just so you know, people of color are the global majority.
We are, in fact.
So ethnic minority doesn't really make sense, but we're not gonna dwell on that too much. But one thing that I believe he mentions in this is that because it's been mostly studied in white boys, right? Cultural differences aren't taken into account. And that's something that we talk a lot about here at Black and Sick. The whole reason that we really wanted to start this platform to talk about Black Six is because there are a number of cultural differences, or we really wanted to discuss the way that culture impacts the way that we practice our faith, right? The way that we move through the world, our lived experiences. And so while some people say, it's like when people talk about travel and they say, oh, I went to so-and-so country and it was an amazing trip. I didn't experience any racism whatsoever. And the person saying it is white, right? It's like, that doesn't speak to what my experience will be like. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that doesn't take into account all of these other factors about my lived experience.
Yeah. And I also think Black people in general have a distrust of the system,
Absolutely.
especially the medical system. So, and mental health is not something that's spoken about in Black communities. So you have these like things converging. So what you have are Black people who will tell you like, that's white people ish. You know what I mean? Like bipolar is white people ish. ADHD is white people ish. Like all of these things, depression, white people ish. So you have to either keep after your parents on the whole thing because they've been raised to believe that, you know, that's just who you are. That's just how you are. So you're not getting any actual medical assistance for something that you've been experiencing since childhood. They've known that you've had this going on since childhood. And it's just been like this uphill battle. So you have that. So the medical profession that we already don't trust is going to have to also find a way past this barrier of it being not culturally Black for us to have these issues at all. Like, it's like, no, they're just different. They just like things their way. They like, I mean, my mom right now will say like, oh, I'll let you get your fork because I know you have to have your special fork. It's not a fork, by the way. There's a few of them. I just want to say that. But it's not one.
Okay,
fork.
so I do the same thing though. So I actually, when I had a guest from over at New Year's, and I actually had to buy some things. Like I went and bought like real silverware and like real dishes because the type of stuff that I like to eat on, like I prefer like the plastic. They're actually kids like utensils or whatever. And like the plates, like all these things that I've been told my whole life are weird and that's not normal and like adults don't do that and why doesn't your apartment look like an adult's apartment and yeah, for sure. And I will say I've talked about this before, but I was very lucky in that my mom was pretty big on mental health, right? So when my parents got divorced, my biological parents got divorced when I was 14 months old, and as a toddler, my mom had me in counseling, right? And I went to counseling throughout my life. However, I feel like there were limits to that, like supportiveness or like understanding, or because I remember when I got diagnosed. So Kimmy and a couple of audience members know this story, but I was diagnosed with ADHD on accident, right? I was at a place in my life where I didn't want any more diagnoses, right? I was born with a genetic illness. I was born with sickle cell, and I was diagnosed with OCD early and then diagnosed with depression. I didn't want any more diagnoses. And I was like, whatever, maybe I have it. I don't want to talk about it because everything I read said you had to have it as a child and it had all these symptoms. And I didn't have those symptoms as a kid, right? Like I did relatively well in school, or at least I would start off doing well. And then anyways, the point is I was diagnosed on accident because the more I talked to my psychiatrist who was treating me for OCD and depression, the more, I guess, apparent it was that, you know, my symptoms were apparent. So he was just like, okay, so when do you want to start tackling the ADHD? And I was like, no, I don't have ADHD. And he was like, what? And so like, you can see that he was like shuffling through his notes. He's like, so you've never been diagnosed with ADHD? He's like, no, I don't have ADHD. And he's like, huh, okay. And it took like 2 more like appointments of him bringing it up for me to be like, sir, are you trying to say something? Like, what is happening right now? And
please leave me alone.
Right. And it wasn't until like I told my mom about it and she starts looking up the symptoms and she goes, this sounds like me. And I was like, no, that does sound like you. Oh. And we do more research and find out there's a genetic component. And I'm like, oh, that explains a lot. Like that explains a lot. And like, as different as we are, like, you know, it's fascinating because it manifests differently in both of us. And while I don't think she'll ever go get an official clinical diagnosis, the more I research, the more I reflect on my childhood, the more it's clear, like, oh, we both have ADHD. Like that is very clear. But I remember telling her, she came out here for my birthday. And like I was having a rough time, like I was like really struggling, and we sat down like right here on this couch, and I was telling her some things. And as supportive as she was, you know, with mental health and things matters, I remember telling her about the ADHD and OCD and how it affects me. And she said, will you always have this? I mean, like this not gonna go away. Like you can't fix it. Like that was like her response. Like, okay, can you fix it? Like, so when is it gonna go away? Like, when are you gonna go back to like normal? Right? Like, which what she was saying is like, so are you gonna start masking again, or like what's happening? Because I'm not a fan of it. Right? And so as like as supportive as she was, it was still like really tough to like hear, because I'm like, I'm not broken. I thought I was, but like I'm not, and no, it's not gonna go away. You know.
I mean, I think.
Sick.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, not sick. Don't need a cure. Just It is what it is.
because like I think ADHD is rough because I'm elderly. I'm one of the elders of the world. So they used to be two separate ones. It's now just ADHD. It used to be ADD and then ADHD.
Right.
And the thing is, they had only experienced it in children, and we're literally only now getting to the point where they realized, oh, it doesn't go away in adulthood. They thought it would. But that was the thing. They thought people would just grow out of it because when they started noticing it and diagnosing it, it was in children, and they're like, oh, it should go away when they're adults. But now those same adults still have ADHD, and some of them were taken off of medications that they needed, and they were like, what are you doing? And they're like, well, you're an adult now. And they're like, I'm not good without them. And I just haven't found a medication for me personally because I am intolerant to most medication, and unfortunately, good time illegal drugs. But I am intolerant, so I have to just figure out how to deal with things, which is very, very difficult until I can find a medication that will. What I'll say is I've tried a few different kinds of medications, and it I can hear it, I can feel it. And I know what it's doing, so it doesn't work for me. So that's the issue I've had for a long time. But
now you were late diagnosed. Were you?
Yes.
You were not diagnosed as a kid, right?
No.
So how long ago were you, or rather, how old were you when you were diagnosed?
I feel like I had to have been. So I got divorced when I was 36. I feel like that is true. And then it was probably 2 years before that. So 34 is when I had my diagnosis.
Okay. So actually, we're around the same age when we discovered it. Kimmy, I feel like you were going to say something.
Oh, I was laughing at that's true.
Okay.
If I was going to say something, I've already lost it. Oh, you know what? I got it again.
There we go.
Okay. So with children becoming adults and thinking it just goes away, no, children learn how to accommodate themselves into mask. And the line that is drawn between, well, you're an adult now, you don't need it, doesn't make sense because a legal adult at 18, and when your brain stops developing 7 years later,
exactly.
Like it just, I apparently am the doctors aren't making sense girl tonight, because like, what is that? That's just not logical. Obviously it wouldn't work that way.
Well, and people forget that in the 90s, there was this huge push against ADD because it was being mostly diagnosed by young men, and a weird ass conspiracy. I don't know if people remember this, but there was this weird conspiracy for a long time that it was just the school system trying to stop boys from being able to be boys.
Oh, right.
And was trying to medicate them to behave like girls. So basically it was like, oh, well, they're not hyper, they're just boys. If you give them, you're just trying to drug our children so that they'll behave. And it was never that. And it was never that. The idea of medication, especially when they first started really diagnosing and giving medication to children, was just people lost it. They're like, you can't give medicine to kids. And it's like, but you can if it helps them. It's literally helping them live their lives like everyone else. Like your son, your daughter, your child is having a hard time just being able to pay attention in class. They're disruptive, which makes it difficult for them to have friends in class sometimes. They can't take the nap at nap time with everybody else. Like all of these things are just stacking up on them. If they were regulated, they could like live.
So there's a few things. One, we have another guest that we're gonna bring on in just a few. I want to go through some of these comments, and then I also want to ask all of y'all, what do you think? I suspect there might be some overlap in these answers and maybe some similar reasons. But the more that I learn about ADHD and the more I reflect on my childhood, the more I understand why I was not diagnosed as a child. And I don't actually know if it would have been possible. And I'll explain why that is shortly. So like, I don't actually really blame anybody for sort of like overlooking my ADHD, because even for me, like I was sort of in denial for a while, but I'll talk about why that is in a second. So I'm going to ask, like, why do you guys think it was that the diagnosis was missed or the symptoms were missed, or how is it manifesting? Because we know that there are two different types. There's the hyperactive and attentive, and, girls tend to have one type. And
Mhm.
And the combination, excuse me, you're right. And girls tend to have one and boys tend to have others. And it is my theory that it's not based on any biological like marker, but more so the way that we are socialized, right? Like a
Yes.
baby comes out and has a certain genitals and they go, oh, this is boy. And boys behave like X. And so we're going to raise this child like X. And we're, not going to police this child in this way because boys will be boys and girls will be girls and da 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 blah, 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 blah. And I think, again, race and culture factors into that, the way that we're socialized and the way that we're raised, right? So let me go through some of these comments real quick. And then, so Madison, I want to give me a thumbs up if you can hear and if you are ready for us to bring you on. All right, sweet. So let me actually bring Madison on and I'm going to have you introduce yourself and then we'll go through some of these comments and get into the, that's why we got a stage manager. Thank you, Kimmy. Okay, sorry.
That's what I'm here
Oh my
for.
goodness.
Thank you. I
Madison
appreciate it.
is beautiful. My gosh.
Thank
Right?
you. So are you.
Bro, right? Like
Whoa.
came up on my like I don't know what I don't use TikTok, but I don't know if it's called a For You page. But I was just like scrolling, and then I just saw hair, and I was like, ooh, and I started watching the videos, and then I saw the Amanda Seales video, and I was like, ooh. So that's how I discovered Madison.
The lighting, just everything.
I know. What is
Oh,
your
wow.
sign after you introduce yourself? I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
I don't really
how
know
about
what
this?
to say
Go
to
ahead.
introduce myself.
So usually what we do is name. You can do a name, land acknowledgement if you know it, pronouns, what you'd like us to call you, and then go ahead and give us your sign. Since everybody else is asking about it.
My name is Madison. Pronouns she, her. I'm African American. Don't know what land I'm coming from. And my sign, I'm really, really into astrology. It's my special interest. So I'll say my sun sign is Leo.
I knew it. I knew it.
Yeah.
As soon as I saw the hair, I was going to say something because I'm Leo rising, babes. So I was looking, I was like, that is a friend there. I see a friend.
Yeah. And a
I'm
Mars
also
and a
Leo
Venus
rising.
too.
Sorry, I got too
Oh,
excited.
wow.
I apologize. Listen,
Okay.
I'm an overly excitable
Okay,
person.
so you're
I could
Leo
get excited
rising,
about
Audra.
Yeah.
What's your sun?
Taurus.
Taurus. Oh, I knew that. I did know that. Okay, so I'm a Scorpio sun with some Leo in there as well.
We're sister
so-
signs.
This makes sense. Yeah, this makes sense. Yeah, Taurus. I had a best friend as a Taurus. I love Taurians.
Listen,
okay.
well, Leo women are fine. Leo men are garbage. Throw them in the trash and just never pull them out. Just let them stay there forever.
I think now that you say that, I only know Leo women and one Leo who is who is non-binary. So
yeah,
you might be right. I'm gonna take your word for it. I don't have to learn lessons on my own the hard way.
I'm like Leo men deserve nothing.
All right, let's get into some comments and then we're going to get to that question. Let's see. Alexis Carney says not planning and then redoing a neurodivergent stream is the most neurodivergent way to do this. Yeah, I think that's about. And for those, so I've heard, I don't know, I haven't looked into it too much because I'm like avoiding diagnoses, but I've heard from multiple people who originally thought that they had OCD and ADHD, and turns out they actually were just on the spectrum.
Yeah.
And so the moment I heard that was like not too long after I had got my ADHD diagnosis. And again, I had already been diagnosed with OCD in 2006. And so I was just like, I quit. I don't want to know anymore. I don't want to hear it. So yeah, I think it probably is one of the most neurodivergent things to do. That's a friend that doesn't know we're friends yet. Imperfectly am. That's how I felt when I discovered.
That's my bestie, actually.
All right. Alexis Carney says runs to subscribe to Audra. Yeah. Highly recommend.
Thank you.
Highly recommend. And we're going to put Madison's, because you're not on YouTube, but you are on TikTok. And if you're on IG, let us know. And we're going to put that in the
I need to add you to my follow list if I'm not following you already.
Okie dokie.
For sure. All right. Alexis Carney says, does anyone else start getting flashbacks when others are talking about neurodivergence? Because y'all are triggering my own memories, but I'm trying to stay present in the moment for your stories. Yeah, I mean, definitely happens for me. I don't know if it happens for y'all.
Yeah, I mean, especially like high school type stuff. I can, because I just remember everybody talking about all this stuff and people were irritating to me. I had my first like full meltdown senior year. I walked out of school. I was like, I'm annoyed and I don't want to be here. And I just left. Apparently you're not supposed to just leave school. So it caused a kerfuffle. But I just remember the whole time, like people would ask me why aren't you doing this? Why are you? I'm like, this is just high school. Like, this isn't the end of life. Like, I don't know why y'all are tripping. And everyone around me would look at me like I was a jerk. And I was just like, are y'all serious? Like, this isn't the end. What are y'all doing?
That's some people's peak though. Now, speaking of high school, I wonder, because I believe like birds of a feather flock together and you sort of like find your people, sometimes whether you realize it or not. So let me tell you, my high school group of friends and my college group of friends, every single one of us has come out as queer, some type of somebody's queer, except for 2. And I just now, and none of us like realized it at the time. Well, let me say, most of us didn't realize it at the time. One of the people in our group came out while we were in college. But it just makes me wonder, now that I know a couple of people that I used to hang out with in high school and college are also neurodivergent or on the spectrum in some way, like, or have ADHD. It makes me wonder, like, how many of us have gone undiagnosed. I kind of want to like reunite with people from high school and college just to find out if we're more alike than we even knew. Speaking of flashing back to high school, let's see. Alexis Carney. I never learned how to do makeup because was never allowed to use it. So I think your makeup content will be helpful to me. Yeah, I don't know. You talked about like not still doing beauty content. Do you still do beauty content, Audra?
I do. Most of my beauty content I just do on my Patreon, because real talk, I just don't want to be the shade police anymore. Like, you know, Jackie Aina has stepped out of not really doing that, and I don't want to be like in the smaller beauty space. I don't want to. I don't want to. I don't like the way people come to my comments being like, Audra, what do you think about the shade range? I'm like, you know, I don't want to talk about it. Leave me alone. I just want to talk about pretty colors, and I don't want to have this conversation every single time a brand comes out with something.
Yeah, I don't blame you. Alexis Carney also says the only thing I do with makeup that people like is a matte lip stain with glitter padded on top. That sounds
What
pretty.
do you like?
That's really pretty.
Yeah. What'd you say? Madison?
I said, what do you like?
Me?
Well, she said the only thing she does.
I see what you're saying.
Pronouns.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I got you. Yeah, Alexis. Yeah. That people like. I see what you're saying. Gotcha.
And if
That's a
you're
good
queer, you
question.
can get away with doing whatever. I mean, everybody can get
question.
away with doing whatever you want with your makeup. But if you're queer, you can really get away with it. If
can
somebody
do
says something
anything.
weird, you're like, "Oh, I'm gay," and they're like, "Oh, okay."
Now I would never do beauty content, but it sort of made me wish that there was some type of like that somebody, a queer but more mask presenting or like androgynous presenting person did makeup, but like right, because like all the makeup content I found has been like really, really feminine or really, really girly, which is lovely to look at, right? But it's like I'm never gonna wear, like, I'm probably not gonna wear like eyeshadow, or maybe I would if I could figure out how to wear it in a way that didn't make me feel like really weird and silly, you know, like I don't know.
I got
I
you.
just saw a TikTok about that. We'll have to find the TikTok, but it was like
really?
this person doing mask, like natural inspired makeup for mask queer people.
Nice. Yeah.
Black
That's what
person.
I've had to figure that out on my, and then of course I finally got like an eyeshadow palette because I was just kind of excited. It was like a Juvia's Place palette that was like on clearance at Target. And I was like, oh, I love all these colors. And of course the first one I tried was like a red one and I was allergic to it. And so
you got to be careful with red
Oh.
shades.
Yeah, I found out the hard way. So still got the scars to
Oh
prove it.
no.
Yeah, it's kind of a mess. I don't like the way makeup feels on my face at all. Yeah, I understand that. So don't like wearing. Let's see what else we've got. I've been processing everything you guys have said. I appreciate y'all. That's dope. Accessibility.
Oh, that's
is
my
always a major.
Jacqueline.
Hey everyone, this says from Jacqueline Claire. Hey everyone, love the conversation. Thank you so much. I've got to go, but I'm so glad you're here doing this. Awesome. Thank you for stopping by. I appreciate it. So many beautiful people on screen right now from Imperfectly M. Had to come over and watch once you dropped the link. Oh, okay. That explains something. You dropped the link, Audra. I gotcha. I was like, I don't recognize all these names. Yeah, okay, cool. People in my life before would act like I'm not doing enough to be presentable if I don't wear makeup. So I spent a while trying to figure out how to wear it, and I hate it. If you don't love it, you don't have to wear it. You know what I'm saying? Like
No, the way I would not wear makeup for a year just out of principle, like then I'm not presentable. Go away.
Yeah, I don't. Which never mind. Because that's a whole nother. We're not gonna go there. That's a whole nother conversation. Okay. So here's the question that I had. What is it? Do y'all think, if y'all know, that made it so that you were diagnosed late? Made it so that you were overlooked either, as a child or whenever you were diagnosed. Audrey you said you were diagnosed around 34. Madison, I don't know how old you were when you were diagnosed or figured it out. Do you remember? 22. Okay. So do y'all know, or what do y'all sort of speculate or think the reasons are that you weren't diagnosed as a child, or that maybe did the symptoms not show up as a child, or did they show up and people were in denial and kind of overlooking them, or what was happening there? Whoever, and Kimmy, same question for you. Or whoever wants to go first.
I can start then. So I grew up, I think my mom was ahead of her time. She was like down for anything. She raised me to be confident and like secure in who I am, like I was just saying. And so I think any of my behaviors that might have been perceived as anything was just like, no, I'm me. I'm doing what I want to do and I'm having fun. And I did really well in school. I had the inattentive part where I would procrastinate, but then no matter what the teacher said, like I could do it at the last minute. And so it wasn't until I got to college and had friends who either were prescribed or otherwise had Adderall. And I tried it because it was apparently so amazing, incredible, whatever. And it was different for me than how it was for my friends. And I was like, oh yeah, this is great. Like, and I was excited because I'm an excitable person. So I was excited to have like the focus and be able to study and do everything, but I wasn't like amped up. And then when I realized the difference, I was like, oh, so then maybe like it didn't create a problem for me when I was younger. Fortunately, I was really lucky. And so then by the time I got older and realized it could just make things easier and better, I went for it.
Gotcha. Audra or Madison, you know what it is, or maybe why guys were overlooked or diagnosed late?
Can you hear me well? I feel like my microphone is really low.
No, I can hear you.
I hear you.
You sound like the same volume as everybody else.
All right. First, I'll say because I got really good grades, I was viewed as like the smart kid in class. So I feel like because I was performing the way that my parents and my teachers expected me to in terms of my grades, they really didn't have anything else to be worried about. And also, maybe it didn't align with their preconceived notions of what someone with who was neurodivergent, what they looked like, because I was super smart. Maybe that wasn't, aligning with that. Also, since doing a deep dive into ADHD and autism and learning all of the signs, I see a lot of the same signs in my family members. So I feel like it's like they didn't see nothing wrong with it because it's them.
Yep.
That's a
Yep.
great point.
That makes sense.
Yep.
Oh goodness.
Audra.
Yeah, I mean,
Or Madison, my bad. If you were, I didn't know. Did I cut you off, Madison?
I was gonna say also, I don't think my parents really knew about it. Even as I try to tell them about it now, there's definitely a limit to what they want to hear. It's like, oh, every time you come over, you have to hear about this, or you try to diagnose everybody, and da, da, da. So it's that hesitancy to even get into it.
I see. Okay.
Yeah, I have like about the same as Madison, actually. I'm Gen X millennial, like I'm right on that cusp, whatever we're calling that. So I'm dangerous, but but I think, my mom grew up in a generation where you just didn't talk about mental health or any of those things. And my mom has always been super supportive of me, but I don't think that for her, the second that medication was being brought up, because at the time they thought maybe I was depressed, because like I said, I just walked out of high school. It was like, that's enough for the day. And the second that the therapist at that time started being like, maybe we want to put them on medication, my mom was like, oh no, my baby doesn't need medicine. And then this, like, I had another one of those episodes in college, like Black people call them episodes. But I had another one in college. I just think that, like Madison was saying, like, my whole family is like this, and none of them will admit to any of it. None of them. And my mother, I'm like whispering as if she can hear me. She's downstairs. My mother will swear that I got that from my now deceased father's side of the family. We're not chill. But I was like, Mom, I hate to be the bearer of bad news.
Yeah.
But it's all y'all.
Yeah.
Y'all did this. Like, my aunts are like this, like every single one of my aunts. And it's just like, I look at all of them and I'm just like, okay, sure, fine. My father's side of the family.
Yeah. Yeah. So for me, I think there's a number of reasons. Like I said before, I think there are a myriad of reasons, but I think there are two major ones that I think about, and one is self-accommodating and my mom being very intentional about how she raised me. So what I mean by self-accommodating, I was born with a genetic illness. I was diagnosed with sickle cell at 2 days old. My mom knew that there was a 25% chance that I would have it before I was born, like while she was pregnant with me. And so just her being who she is, she was very much like, oh, I need to know everything. I need to, like learn everything. I need to be, a walking encyclopedia when it comes to sickle cell. And that was very much bestowed upon me. And so I've been an advocate actually since I was 7. I was in the 3rd grade when I first started doing like public speaking and like stuff about that. And so my point is, with sickle cell, I had to learn to accommodate myself, right? In ways that, maybe other kids wouldn't have to. And so that just became my norm, right? Like when there was an obstacle, I just knew, okay, I got to figure it out. I just got to figure out how to make it work. Like there was no, and sometimes you say like, yeah, hey, I need to have a blanket in class, or you may ask for certain accommodations, but for the most part, my mom was very like, if you're well enough to go to school, okay, you might be in pain, this might be happening, but you're going to school. You're going to figure it out. You're going to make it happen. Like I always sort of say that my mom is similar to how I hear, 1st gen or 2nd gen kids describe their parents when they're immigrants, right? Being very strict, having very high standards, like just being OD when it comes to like the standards and the strictness. And that's like very much how my mom was. And so in some ways, like as rough as that was, looking back, like, oh, I could have had help. Like, oh, I could have been on these meds and like not struggling and suffering. I think I am grateful in some ways because it pushed me to have to like accommodate myself to figure out another way of doing it. And so I would create these systems. Like I used to lose things a lot, right? So I remember as an adult hearing one of the symptoms or common things about ADHD was losing things a lot. And I was like, oh, I almost never lose anything. But the reason that is because as a kid, I lost things all the time and I got in trouble for it. And so I realized I have to figure out how to stop losing things. I cannot keep getting in trouble because when I'm telling you trouble, like, I mean, like I'd be grounded for a long, like major punishment. So I created systems that sort of allowed me to survive in the world that I was in the very, very white, predominantly white spaces that I was in school, in my neighborhood, wherever I was. Like I sort of figured out how to accommodate myself. And then the other part is just like my mom being very intentional about that. Like she wanted one kid so that I could go to private school so she could afford to send me there. So I was in all these programs and I was in all this. And like when I graduated from college, I walked off the stage with my diploma and I just handed it to my mom. I said, Happy Mother's Day, because we actually graduated on Mother's Day. And I said, Happy Mother's Day. And I did that like not for some like wild sentimental, oh my God, I love you so much, but more so like I'm very aware that you earned this as much as I did, right? Like from my mom calling me when I had early morning classes because it was such a struggle for me to wake up, to like doing all these extra things, right? Like putting me in these programs and making sure like, okay, my GPA wasn't going to be the best because even though I could start off strong, I would struggle. I would get bored and struggle halfway through the quarter or something like that. And so I had all these extracurricular activities and like that helped my college application. And so it's like my mom being very intentional about how she raised me, I think allowed me to like fly under the radar. But yeah, so I kind of wanted to figure out where we were all coming from in terms of like being late diagnosed and reasons that we may have flown under the radar when it comes to being diagnosed as either on the spectrum or with ADHD or being neurodivergent in general.
And you know what? I probably should have added that it was just me and my mom. My mom was in the Air Force. So I am the only child of a military mom, which means I spent a lot of time raising myself. And I didn't really think about that because obviously it slipped my mind. But you talking reminded me that like I didn't have to be intentional about things. So that's why I still am just very like, and because you were talking about losing things and it reminded me of the multiple times like my mom would, Audra, did you eat my sandwich? And I was like, no, I didn't eat your sandwich. You ate your sandwich. This is, so I'm growing up in a neurodivergent household with neither one of us knowing. And just like she would do that all the time, eat something and then think that I ate it. And I'm like, how could I possibly eat your food from my room? What do you mean?
Got you. All right. So I'm going to play this next video clip. We're going to play this one and then we're going to go straight to a video about Jessie Woo and from Jessie Woo about Amanda Seales. And there's a reason I'm using this sort of Amanda Seales situation to highlight a lot of this because I felt like during the conversation, I meant to say this earlier, but I felt like during the conversation about Amanda Seales and whether or not she was likable and like how polarizing she is and blah, 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 this, that, and the third. And it was when people found out that she self-diagnosed that I realized other neurodivergent people were catching strays, right? Like Amanda Seales was the target, but we were out here catching strays. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, that's not like, even though like, yes, I have a clinical diagnosis and can show paperwork, I knew before I was diagnosed with OCD, okay, I probably got OCD, right? Like I did so much research. I spent months doing research, and any sort of any diagnosis that I've sort of given myself prior to has only been confirmed. And that's just because of the amount of research I did, right? And so I want to talk about the number of ways and reasons that self-diagnosis is valid, and not only valid, but like really, really important, and why we don't need to like shame people about that. So let's get into this. And again, Madison, as I was telling Audra before, we're gonna watch this video and then another one. If you want to pause at any point and make a comment or just let me know, raise your hand, do something like that, and we can do that. Right.
Especially when he was talking about the autism spectrum disorder, ASD. Now, y'all know we are in cancel culture. If you say anything wrong about a particular community, LGBTQIA+, women, Black people, whoever, minority group, you will get canceled in a minute. And I think that he is doing something really unique on his platform. And he's not trying to get canceled. So his words were very, roundabout-ish, when he was talking about autism. And why are we talking about?
Just to give a little context, she's talking about Shannon Sharpe. She's talking about the Amanda Seales and Shannon Sharpe interview. And so she's saying, he was... I'll get into it later because I disagree with her on a number of things. Yeah, like I think I have issues with. I don't know if you guys have seen the entire interview. I haven't seen all of it. I've seen clips. I've seen enough. I've seen more than enough. Right. I'm not watching 3 hours of me being triggered. I don't need it. But I do have issues with some of the things he was saying. Like I always say, like I hate when people play devil's advocate. The devil doesn't need any advocates. It's just not necessary 9 times out of 10. But that's what she's talking about here when she's saying he and cancel culture, which I don't actually think is a thing. But anyways.
Talking about autism, let's get into this thing because I got to share my perspective on this too. And we're going to talk about accountability, which I don't think she could. We're going to talk about a whole bunch of things in this video, so make sure to stay to the end. Amanda stating that she was recently diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum showed me and told me that she was diagnosed by a licensed professional. Y'all, this is where the arguing starts. Listen, I'm not here to debate. I am not here to debate at all. I personally do not know if she has fully been diagnosed because from what I heard, there wasn't a formal diagnosis from a licensed professional. She essentially kind of like self-diagnosed herself. There was some stuff swirling around her saying that cost like $10,000 to get fully assessed to be on the spectrum and all of these things. And I'm like, no, none of that is true. Now, I do believe that we are in a technology-driven age where we can look up stuff, become knowledgeable, and figure out the things that are going on with us, whether that is medically and physically, emotionally, mentally, on the internet, essentially. And there's a lot of people who self-diagnose. And I believe that self-diagnosing has pros and it has cons. We need to use self-diagnosing with a grain of salt. Just because you look up something and you think that you have all of the symptoms, you cannot just sit up here and just be like, oh, yeah, okay, now I have this. And then you go through your whole entire life having this particular disorder. That doesn't feel right to me, right? But also on the flip side, I can see how someone who doesn't have the resources, who doesn't have the money, who does not know how to navigate the system will use that self-diagnosis because they don't have any other outlet. I get that there are disparities, right? When it comes to mental health, when it comes to getting assessments, when it comes to all of these things, therapy, I get it. I absolutely do. I've been in this game for over a decade. But what I also know about self-diagnosing is that if you are going to do something like that, take the symptoms,
girl.
So one thing I was going to say, I went ahead and watched the comments, right? And so as much as she's saying, like, I understand, like, there's resources and blah, blah, I don't think she does because somebody said something about like $10,000. That's a ridiculous number, right? Like, at my clinic, it's only $100 to get this appointment. And then you get that, which just led me to know that these people who are talking and claiming it's not $10,000 don't really understand how the process works. Again, you're not going in and getting diagnosed for a cold or the flu or even cancer, right? Like there are steps to it. You can't just go in and get one appointment. They ask you a few questions. Got you. That's not how it works. There are a number of appointments. It depends on whether or not you have insurance, whether or not you're an adult or a child. If you can find the right space, like I'm trying to make an appointment right now to get a new doctor so I can get back on my meds. And the process is bananas, right? Yeah. I have to drive an hour and a half in LA traffic. And then I have got to see multiple people, but there are steps to it, right? Like, so depending on copays or whether or not you have insurance, I could see it going towards or even past $10,000. And there's a creator on this platform on YouTube who has talked about the cost of getting a clinical diagnosis. And it is not cheap. Like it is, but that's what I saw in the comments.
Yeah. Not only that, but depending on where you are, like I'm in Texas, most of the autism diagnosis and those who can do it are doing it for children and children only.
Mm-hmm.
Children only. So that would also put you in a position to have to go out of state or to a specialist in, maybe Dallas, Houston, you might have to go. You may have to go to Austin. Like, it's not, you can't just like find a doctor to do this. It's not because, again, just as we started finding out with ADHD, where they're now discovering, oh, there's a whole lot of adults who have undiagnosed autism, and very few of us have done any work to know how to diagnose an autistic adult.
Exactly. Absolutely.
Let alone a Black and woman and all of that.
Thank you, Madison.
That's coming up, but yes, you're absolutely right. Kimmy, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I haven't seen the beginning of this video, but the way that she says, and I'm a professional, it seems like flippant of other perspectives, but does she acknowledge that there might be any like anchoring bias at all, where because she's a professional, she thinks this is the right way, this is the way that it's done, this is the way she was educated, and she's not taking into consideration that other people can have that knowledge and self-awareness and have other paths?
Yeah, based on this video, and I think y'all see why I say this, I would put money on a number of people in the actually autistic community, in the neurodivergent community, having more knowledge about neurodivergence and the way that it shows up in people who are not white boys. I would put money on them having more knowledge about that than she does. And I'm saying that based on, yes, this one video alone, because of some of the things she says, some things that we already know for a fact are counter what she says, and you'll, like I said, you'll see what I mean when I say that.
Take the information that you Googled and the YouTube videos that you watched, and then take that information to a licensed professional as quickly as possible. That licensed professional can be your medical doctor. It can be a psychiatrist. It can be a therapist. It can be whoever you need to speak with in order to agree and affirm and confirm that this is an accurate diagnosis.
Except that it can't, though. Not for everybody.
Yeah.
Like, it literally cannot, right? Like,
No.
So disappointed.
That's what I said. I went to my doctor and my doctor says, oh, I have to give you a referral, right?
Correct.
And then based on my insurance, I go through like UCLA, like whatever, right? For most of my stuff. But based on my insurance, I have to go through an entirely different thing for that. And also I want to say, for sickle cell, saying like, oh, you can just go get a clinical diagnosis, like she's saying it like it's so easy, right? But if we take something like sickle cell, which is one of the most common genetic disorders in the US, it's one of the most prevalent, I should say. I have people that I know to this day who only get to see their hematologist, which is their sickle cell doctor, twice a year because of how few there are in their area. This person is in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Okay, they only get to see their sickle cell doctor twice a year. Now, for context, that is wild. If you have sickle cell, most people with sickle cell are seeing their sickle cell doctors monthly, right? Like they're getting monthly transfusions, or they're seeing them monthly, or at least every few months. Twice a year is bananas. And so if we have people with sickle cell who don't even get to see their sickle cell doctors due to lack of resources or proximity or lack of care providers, imagine how it is for something like autism or ADHD in adults. Like it's just not nearly as simple as she's saying. Like,
my therapist actually laughed at me.
Go ahead.
I was saying my therapist laughed at me when I told her that I thought I had ADHD. And of course, before I told her that, I had hyper focused many nights, all night long, reading, taking quizzes, taking books out the library of ADHD and women and girls. And so I told her, I think I might have ADHD, and she just chuckled. She was like, Madison, you do not have ADHD. And that hurt my feelings. So bad, because do you think I didn't read? Like, do you think I didn't prepare? Do you think I don't have reasons? Like, you wouldn't immediately ask me, why do you think that? Or what's your proof or anything? It's just a laugh and a no. But then when she took out that questionnaire and we went through everything, I was kind of looking for an apology. I'm not gonna lie, but she didn't give me an apology.
Yeah,
of course not.
It's so funny. Because I had a relatively good, and my therapist was like this like old white lady. And I think she noticed the second I walked in the room, and I feel like she was just giving me the test at this point, just to like be like, okay. I think she really wanted to just be like, here you go. Cause I think I walked in, we started talking, and I remember her eyes kind of going, So like,
Probably.
See, and my experience is so different. Like, as even as a white college kid who went into a psychiatrist for the first time, said, "Hey, I tried my friend's Adderall and liked it. I think I have ADHD, maybe." I've never been tested. Every single in the what has it been? 10 or so, like 10 to 12 years since my diagnosis, probably never have any of the doctors I've ever seen done any sort of testing. I told them that I have or was diagnosed or think that I have ADHD, and that was all it took for me.
Just off the strength of your word, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's wild.
I
Not
can't
surprising.
believe. My therapist was a Black woman too. Like, y'all, I was
Oh,
so
that's the
disappointed.
most disappointing. When it's one of your own, that'd be the most disappointing, bro. My feelings
God.
be hurt. I'm like, wow, really?
I think that's why
Okay.
seeing this lady here talk like this is bothering me too. Because
Yes.
I'm like, girl, you're trying to tear down your own because it makes you, because it gets clicks. Let's be real. Like, it gets the views and it pays you, which I understand, trying to get your bag, but please don't get your bag at the expense of one of our own. Like,
Yeah.
You're in the
I
wrong
want
people too.
I want people to like not think that they know more than they do, right? Like, I want people to like really check their ego, right? Like, that's matter of fact, Kimmy, if can you pull up the police video? Just kind of like have that on deck, have that on standby.
Yeah, I got it.
All right, bet. I'm gonna play that in a second, and you'll see why in a second. But because I really want to show y'all like why it's so harmful that people don't understand neurodivergence, or even the way that anxiety shows up in other people, right? It doesn't show up the same way in everybody, and very often it's been said, like studies have shown that anxiety manifests as anger or annoyance in Black women, right? So a lot of people will perceive it as anger when it's truly anxiety. And I think I have a pretty good example of that we're going to play in a second. But let's keep going with this.
You say, hold on, baby, you don't meet the criteria for this. And there is no way. I want you guys to think of it from a different perspective, right? If we thought about, say, for instance, someone who has cancer. If someone came to you and says, hey, I've recently been diagnosed with cancer. I don't think anybody else thinks this person went and self-diagnosed themselves by looking on Google, and they never went to the actual medical doctor, their primary or an oncologist, to get the actual confirmation that they are someone who is suffering with cancer. They didn't get any blood work, they didn't get any tests done, no assessments done, and they're just going off of what they think. If someone did that and they came to you, you would be like,
You sound
what
just
in
like
the hell
Shannon.
is going on right now?
Yeah, that's wild to say. Because who would do this is not even, this is apples and watermelons at this point, because who on this planet would think to themselves, I'm gonna self-diagnose myself with cancer and go live their lives like that? Nobody would do that. Like,
that's
unless they're severely mentally ill.
That's low-key insulting, right? Like
yeah.
I mean, that you're calling me dumb, right? Like, you're calling me a lot of things, but really to compare, I remember when my sickle cell doctor, I had a temporary sickle cell doctor when mine retired, because for whatever reason he decided he needed to tell me less than a month before he was retiring. And so I had a temporary doctor, and she was quote unquote uncomfortable with the amount of pain medication that I was taking, which, mind you, there are patients with sickle cell who take far more than I do, right? But she was uncomfortable with the amount I was taking, and she proceeded to tell me, I have cancer patients who aren't even on this much pain medication. Ma'am,
okay,
what the fuck did that got to do with me? What does that have to do? Why would you compare cancer to sickle cell? Why would you compare cancer to ADHD, to autism, to neurodivergent? What's happening?
This is why I'm always in pain, because I refuse, because I know that like doctors in general treat Black patients as if they're seeking pain medication. So I'm just constantly in pain instead of getting anything proper. I'm like, no, it's fine. I'll just be broken inside.
It's a nightmare. It's why I went a number of years without taking pain medicine, right? I was like fear mongered so much that you're going to become addicted. You're going to become addicted. I just dealt with pain until I couldn't anymore. But it's a nightmare. And so for this white woman, and I went ahead and I looked up her alma mater, mind you, because I needed to do research, right? Because this is a side sort of tangent, but she dropped me to less than a fifth of what I normally took in the span of 11 days, right? Which was mad dangerous. And so I started doing some research on her, because I was like, oh, somebody's getting reported to the board, because this goes against CDC recommendations, right? And I said, so I found out which university she went to, and there are less than 1% of Black people at her alma mater. And I said, oh, oh yeah, okay, I understand. I found her hometown, found her both our undergrad and medical school she went to, and I did the research. It's a mess. It is a mess. Mind you, I would like to say this is the only white woman doctor that I've ever had, and also the only sickle cell doctor that has ever given me issues and accused me of drug seeking like that. I just, I'm just saying.
Yeah, I just sit there.
When we're talking about the bear versus man conversation, or the white woman versus white man conversation in the conference room, I'm saying I'm choosing white man in the bear every time. Okay.
And with that story, Smalls, didn't you tell me that before you started seeing that doctor specifically, you had like a year ago a conversation with her saying, this is what my situation is. This is what I'm going to need. I've had other doctors who have issues. And she specifically took you on as a patient, and then just later.
Yeah, because like I do my due diligence, right? Like I said, I've been an advocate since I was 7 years old, third grade, and so I kind of know the ins and out. I know like what you're not supposed to do to avoid red flags or appearing like. And so I did my research. I interviewed the doctor. They tell you to interview. This is what I normally take. This is my regimen. This is how we got to this point. This is why I'm on this particular medication as opposed to this one. This is why I take the amount I do and when I take it. Like I have to work. It doesn't make me crap. Like all those things. Spent about an hour on the phone with her, and she's like, "Yeah, no problem. Yeah, we can do X, Y, Z." And then the moment that she became my actual doctor, it was like, F you. Like that's how I felt.
Dang.
But that's a full other story for another time. But let's get back
because it would feel like that person is lying to you, right? The same thing goes for a mental health or a mental illness diagnosis. If you know or you think that you are having symptoms, use that information and knowledge to inform the licensed professional about what you feel is going on and let them confirm that. Don't just be walking around talking about I'm on the spectrum. Yeah, I'm on the spectrum without a formal diagnosis. That feels very
mocking tone.
Yes, and here's
do you know anybody who's walking around? I'm on the spectrum. Do you know anybody who's doing that?
It doesn't serve you. It doesn't. Most of us don't even want to
talk about it. And I mean, there's so many of us. Like for me, I didn't talk about it for a long time because for this very reason, I didn't want to be one of the people, right? Like even though I had the speculation, I was like, I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to mention it. I don't want to mention that I'm on meds. Like I can talk about sickle cell all day long, but like mental health stuff. This is why I didn't talk about it until we started catching strays because of the Amanda Seales situation. This is why.
Well, how could she even say all of that? Because the amount of women and femmes that have been diagnosed as bipolar and aren't. And it turns out that a large amount of them have the combination of autism and ADHD, but woman emotional, bipolar. Like that's what's been happening for decades.
And are on medication for it.
Yes. And that's how I knew that I did not have that and started moving forward with it is in fact the ADHD, because I just quit taking my bipolar meds and I was like, nothing's changed. I'm the exact same. I'm the same as I was taking them. And nothing changed in between. The same issue still is here. I'm not experiencing highs and lows. I'm just anxious for random reasons because of like trying to mask and all of the ADHD symptoms. I can get anxious from that. I think most of us do. The fact that I got that medication was just like, so nothing's changed. Everything is the exact same. It's not this.
Yep. All right, let's get into it.
Also feels like it's a punch in the face to the people who are truly on the spectrum, who truly do have the diagnoses. Now, I know a lot of people wanted me to break down the symptoms of autism and, all the spectrum and all of those things. I can't do that in this video. I'll have to do a separate video specifically just on that. But when she said that, I felt all the tingles in my body being like, yeah, this isn't how this really should have gone. But I'll give it to her, right? I mean, she talked about being on Lexapro. She talked about, unfortunately, being suicidal at certain parts in her career and in her life. So, and she also talked about going to therapy, right? So she is under some type of care, whether that is a medical doctor, whether that is a psychiatrist, whether that is a therapist, whoever. But she is getting some type of care for her mental health issues. And I can appreciate that. The next thing that I want to talk to you guys about is the
Thank God you appreciate
that Amanda
it.
has. Amanda is a light-skinned Black woman.
Right.
Growing up, she was able to do extracurricular activities, like doing gymnastics, like being on Nickelodeon and Disney at the age of 8, like traveling, right? She talked about going to these different places with her aunt who actually married a white man. So they were out here doing white people things like snorkeling. She talked about all of these experiences as being an only child. And
I don't
is
know
this
why
light
that was
skin on light skin violence?
I don't know why that was in air quotes, but even on second watch, like it feels very like mocking. Like she says, like she has no bias because she doesn't know Amanda. She's not a fan of Amanda Seales, but she doesn't dislike her. But like it's starting to feel like some bias there, right? Like, there's starting to feel like some condescension, right? Like some like how silly of you to diagnose yourself, like, and it's just it's harmful. Like you know, not just to Amanda Seales, but to other people. And you can see it in the comments. Like, I feel like the comments are not always, but are often a good reflection of like either the creator or like what's happening in the video, or at least the takeaway. Not always. But based on these comments, it's like, oh yeah, this video was, I don't know what you were intending to do with it, but it was certainly harmful.
Like, why is she even pointing out that she's light skinned? Because girl, so are you. Like, she's also light skinned. What is the point? Being like, she's a light skin. I'm like, but you are also light skinned.
I mean, I think colorism is a factor in Amanda's story, which is something I probably plan to mention, but she doesn't connect that to anything here. So I don't know why she mentions it here. It feels very like, I don't know.
I was wondering where that train of thought was going to go.
Madison, same.
Let me play it a little bit just to
I couldn't help but to hear the underlying privilege from her life experiences. And to keep it a buck, I was glad that she mentioned these things. She was very honest, she was very mature, and she was very open about her lived experiences, because people tend to project things on her and say her mama's white, her daddy white, you know, she's like, no, none of these things are true. And I think the thing that I appreciate about her even understanding her own privilege is that Black people at varying degrees of their experiences, right? Not every Black person grew up in the hood, ain't had nothing, never gonna be nothing, struggle life all the time. That's not the case. This is why we have upper, middle, and lower class, and that even applies to the Black community. So her talking about coming from a middle class family and having the experiences like theater and all of the things that I already mentioned is a very different lived experience from somebody like me who grew up in Compton, right? And who struggled through some things. We didn't really have that many extracurricular activities. It's like if you did something, you might do something after school with school, right? But it ain't nothing extra that your mama had to pay because you need to go on and come on home, right? Most of us are probably latchkey kids or things of that nature, and so that's to you.
Once she's doing too much,
people putting labels on you and saying you're a lie. Leads me to the next thing, which is when Amanda talked about being misunderstood and unprotected. My heart broke for her when she mentioned those things. Partially because of the things that I just mentioned about being the only Black person or being the token Black person in multiple scenarios, that does something to you. But also too, people putting labels on you and saying, you're a lie, you're a team too much, I don't like you, you're a show off, you're extra. That was something that I really needed for her to reel in. Sometimes the ideas and the labels that people put on you are accurate, which we're gonna talk about accountability in a second. But then also too, on the flip side, there's some labels and things that people put on you that is completely inaccurate, and you shouldn't internalize them, because if you do, you're gonna start to believe a lie. And this is another area where I could truly relate to Amanda, because when you are a Black woman who tends to be a little bit more blunt, who tends to be a little bit more direct, who don't play little games with people, who is strong, who typically can speak their truth without hemming and hawing and, you know, shrinking and being small, people experience you differently. Being outspoken and opinionated can cause issues, one, within yourself internally, but also with other people. And really, essentially, what it goes down to was the thing that Shannon Sharp mentioned, people feeling like you're not playing the game. And this game that he kept alluding to, I completely understand what the game is. And if you don't, then, you know, that's just something that
then you might be autistic.
But then you might be autistic.
Thank you.
Or school or in the entertainment industry.
That's the exact thing. If you don't understand the game, say it again, Madison.
Like, the point is parallel to her head, and she just won't see it. She don't want to see it. It's not in her peripheral. I don't know. Like,
yeah, that's something I said last time, right? Like, Jessie Wu also said this, where she was like, well, if that's autistic, I know a lot of autistic people. And I'm like, you probably do. Like, it's like the point be right there. And it's like, they will just move over to miss it. Like,
no, go ahead.
I can't. First, especially when she started talking about like you being too much and like being a lot. That is something I think a large amount of Black neurodivergent people have had to reckon with. And I'm not going to say overcome, because you don't have to overcome being exactly who the fuck you are. You should never have to overcome that. You either have people who love you just being exactly who you are, or you don't. I hate that she's trying to make people minimize themselves and who they are. Like, look at Amanda's outfit. Did you see her outfit for that?
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be mean, but that was an autistic ass outfit. It was loud. There was a lot of autism in that outfit. I'm so confused why anybody would even be like, oh, I don't like, not to be a hater, because I often step out autistic because I am. But you can't tell me. Because, like,
I love the outfit, and I don't disagree with you. I don't disagree with you.
Yeah, because you saw Monique come out one way. You saw, you know, and then Amanda comes out, and as soon as I saw it, I was like, and y'all gonna sit here being like, I don't think she's autistic. All right.
Okay. Okay, I'm gonna jump to this last bit
Can I
because
just
this
say
is
something really quickly?
yeah, go for it. I was gonna say I'm gonna skip to this last part because it's the only part I agree with. Go ahead, Kenny.
Okay, so we're talking about the point going right by her head. I'm kind of petty and nosy, so I looked up the Forbes 1000 thing that is next to her head, like the
Period.
picture of herself.
Mhm.
And it's something that like you have to submit to. I'm not trying to take away from anybody's achievements,
Correct.
but the way that she is belittling other people while sitting next to a plaque of herself, like, no.
And hard work. I've noticed that too. Underneath it, it's like, I don't know if it's a book,
Yeah, I see that.
but it's like her face, a microphone, the plant, hard work.
Yeah, she clearly thinks very highly of her own opinion.
Which is why she thinks she understands this better than she does, right? Which is I left a comment and basically said I ride for Black women. Like everybody knows that. Like it's I'm a fan and I'm a supporter off top by default. Like you got to do something to make me not support you when you're a Black woman, right? Like it's just like an automatic subscribe. Like I see Black woman, I subscribe, I follow. Like that's just how I am, right? That's how I was raised. And so like I was like, oh yeah, okay, this is gonna be a solid take. Like I can probably subscribe. No. So immediately when I left the comment, I was like, hello, I'm disappointed. This is harmful. Like I would encourage you, like, please look up, more information about this. And I didn't want to say like, you think you understand it better than you do, but that's what I wanted to say. Right. But I hope that she looks more into this and like just educates herself further, because the moment that you feel like you understand something or you got it or you don't have any learning to do, like the fact that she didn't do any research before she got on here and spoke about this is like, it's really disappointing. Because if she had done just a little bit of research, right, and listened to the people who have it, she would have seen like more reasons for why self-diagnosing is valid, why some of her points don't make sense. Like, anyways, here's this last little bit, and then
it leads me to my last point, and I probably should have started with this one because this is what I truly feel. I feel like it leads me to the point of Amanda not accepting accountability for who she is, for her relationships, and for how she's showing up in the world. I have been a therapist for a long time now, and one thing that I know for sure is that when there is a recurring theme in your life and people are saying the same thing, but in different scenarios, and they're repeating themselves, and they're saying labels that seem to be common, I would encourage that person to go ahead and whip out a mirror and just see if there's some validity to what the other person is saying about you. I just recorded an episode on the Keandra Jackson show where I had an expert on there talking about how to improve your emotional intelligence. And she talked about having high emotional intelligence, but one of the key components to high emotional intelligence is introspection and self-awareness. I'll link it up here just in case y'all want to watch it. But that was something that I felt that she was lacking in this arena. Now, there's varying levels of self-awareness, but when it came to assessing you, when it came to putting the mirror on you, when it came to thinking about how you're showing up, there wasn't this level of accountability. I didn't hear her once say in this interview, yeah, my bad, that was me. Or yeah, in that scenario, I could have done something different. Or yeah, it wasn't that person, it was me. Or I was going through something and this was the reason. None of those words ever came out of her mouth. If I'm being 100, she basically blamed other people in every scenario that she mentioned. Narrative that she was giving off, it was like, well, it's just other people. Like, I'm just misunderstood, or people just are not protecting me. People just can't handle someone like me who's more direct and blunt, and that's not my problem. That's everybody else's in the world's problem. What? It kind of gave a little bit of victim mentality. It kind of gave the vibe of everybody's picking on me. And because this interview was trending, I was on Facebook and someone tagged me in a post. And from this channel called For You page, they were talking about the Amanda situation. I said, oh, this is exactly kind of how I feel about the accountability piece. So I want to read this so you guys can get the sentiment of what I was saying. Her teacher was racist because she didn't want Amanda talking back and correcting her. Her dorm mates in college all hated her because she had a strong mind and was pretty. Marsha was intimidated of her for no reason and hated on her. She was expelled from college because a white kid lied on her. Nickelodeon was racist in the process of getting another gig. She now has autism, since people tend to quote unquote hate her, but when she was more popular, she was just fine. She got fired from Sirius Radio, and it wasn't her fault, it was her boss's. She wasn't allowed to attend an Emmy party for no apparent reason. The cast of Insecure hated her for no reason. Issa Rae didn't want to protect her and didn't like her for no reason. Issa's publicist hated on her for no reason. Black Enterprise started beef with her for no reason. Howard University decided to rescind her interview for no reason. Cast and the executive on The Real didn't like her for no reason. Essence Magazine doesn't like her for no reason. So when you kind of lay it all out just like this For You page.
Okay.
Not using
First,
Nickelodeon.
I almost don't know where to start, but let me say this. One, Amanda has not said for every one of these, she has not said that they were for no reason. That is not what she has said for every single time. What she
never
has
said no reason.
For what she has said multiple times was, I don't know, I'm not sure, that I can't tell, right? And I can relate to this so much. It is unfunny. Like Kimmy can tell you this, right? Like I am the first to be like, what did I do wrong? It's me. I know it's got to be me. I'm the common denominator here. What's happening, right? So on the one hand, I don't want to say accountability, because I still don't think like being neurodivergent it means you're broken or anything like that. And we do know that a lot of this has to do with the world not being set up for the way that our brains operate, right? And so I don't think accountability is the right word. What I would say is I remember watching her video and wondering how she got to her big age and had not yet figured out how to play the game better than she does. Not saying that she should have to. I was curious about how she got to where, because it's clear to me that she doesn't, her masking ain't as, it ain't top notch masking, right? Now she shouldn't have to mask at all. And yet in an industry like that, right? An industry in which I've worked and I know unfortunately all too well how much you really do need to mask, how much of your success in Hollywood is based on who likes you and how much they like you. If people can work with you, get along with you, and you don't have to be evil, rude, angry, mean, like it can literally just be people not liking you, not vibing with you, not gelling with you, right? And the publicist, I played the first part of the last live stream where I talked about the fact that I worked for that publicist. The publicist that kicked Amanda Seales out of the Emmy party, I interned for her. Okay. And I'm not going to go into it now, but that internship and a number of other things that were happening in my life led me to being 5150 in the hospital, in the psych ward. It went bad. Right. And I was so scared to speak up for myself because I knew that success in the industry is so much about likability, who you know, how they think of you, your reputation, right? And if you're as awkward or as weird as I am, like you have to play that game. Like you have to learn how to, you know, Jesse Wu calls it shucking and jiving, which I don't even think it's shucking and jiving, but essentially it's masking, right? And especially if you're not diagnosed, it can be very difficult to be going through life and not understanding, why did they just stop speaking to me? Well, why were they? You didn't tell me you were mad. Well, you should just, y'all, I'm going to tell you this real quick. This is how like clueless I was about like social norms and social games. When I was dating somebody in high school, and for those who don't know, I am polyamorous, right? Okay. Now, how do I know? Because when it was first described, I was like, oh my God, that's me, right? I self-diagnosed myself as polyamorous. Okay. But in high school, I was dating this guy that I had met at work. I was working at Best Buy, dating this guy, right? And this is during MySpace time. Okay. So I put on my MySpace wall that I had a crush on this other guy in my high school. And my boyfriend that I had at the time saw it. And me, in my mind, I was like, yeah, so what's the problem? I don't understand what the problem is. He was pissed, right? So I go to my friends and I say, yeah, he's mad. You know, Kendo's mad about this, but like all I said was I had a crush on him. I didn't say like we were going out on a date and da. And all of my friends were like, well, duh, like that's so obvious. Like that's what I mean by like some things just need to be explicitly told, right? And if they aren't, like you cannot expect people to know. Now, maybe other like neurodivergent people, like that was clear to other people, but nobody explicitly told me you're not allowed to like two people at the same time. I just knew how I was feeling, right? And so it was like then that I started to have to learn how to play this game, and like that I was supposed to just know things, that I was supposed to just be like other people in some way, right? Like it just.
And to the point, Amanda probably never masked. She had no reason to, because she was a creative. From day none, she was a creative. So her family probably didn't make her mask. So that is a big reason why she has probably had such a difficult time in Hollywood, because she didn't know she was supposed to be playing this game. Like to your point, when you were talking about high school and not being told explicitly to do things. When I was in high school, we wanted to go see Dangerous Minds. I know, leave me alone. So we went to go see Dangerous Minds, but we weren't old enough because it was R-rated. And so they're like, they get tickets to see A Walk in the Clouds. Everybody gets a ticket for Walk in the Clouds. When we get into the theater, I am turning to go to Walk in the Clouds. Everybody else is going towards Dangerous Minds. I yell out, guys, Walk in the Clouds is this way. And they're like, shh, shh. And I'm like, it's over here. And they're like, shh, shh. And I go over there. Nobody told me we were sneaking into the R-rated movie. So like, again, that's like a thing that I did not know. If you didn't explicitly tell me that. We bought tickets to see Walk in the Clouds. I'm expecting we're going to go see it. I didn't want to see it. You know, I had no problems with Mandy Moore, but I didn't want to see that movie. Nobody told me that. No, go ahead.
Yeah. So I pulled up this screenshot and I found it fascinating because if y'all remember in the video, wait. Oh, you know what? Hold on. Hold that, Kimmy. Actually, we need to play this Jessie Woo video first because it's actually in the Jessie Woo video, not Miss Therapist, ma'am. I apologize.
Miss Therapist, man.
Keandra. I didn't want to be disrespectful. I forgot her name. So let's actually play this Jessie Woo video. Do you guys have any additional thoughts about this last? Please.
Yeah, I think when it came to the accountability piece, I think she's saying like when people call Amanda out on things, it's obviously symptoms of autism. Like I remember one time I was told in a group setting that I want everything to be my way, and I really didn't understand what they meant by that because I over ask sometimes what other people think, what other people need. I ask way too many questions, very specific questions. I'm trying to make sure that everybody's accommodated. I'm a very fair person. It's one of my values. So for them to say, oh, you just want everything to be your way. Once I learned that I was on the spectrum, it made me think about like rigidity and black and white thinking. Like I'm thinking like which symptom of this came off like to neurotypical. So that's what I think is happening, that she's saying Amanda isn't taking accountability for, because she's not those things. It is just a symptom. And if you knew that, then you wouldn't say shit like that. Because I'm wondering what, like you put therapist reacts to Amanda, but like what type of therapy? What's your degree in? Like maybe are you a marriage and family therapist and you didn't really study autism that much? You know, like
actually, I believe she is. And let me say to your point, Madison, well, I just lost my train of thought. Oh, about accountability and Amanda not under. So rigidity, black and white thinking are very, very common traits of neurodivergence, right? Like it made me understand like why I am the way I am, why I am where I'm like words mean things. Okay, I get that. Like I'm not trying to be pedantic, right? But like this word literally means this thing. Well, but that's not how we were using it. Well, how was I supposed to know that?
Yeah,
because I read the dictionary for fun as a kid. That was my Harry Potter. Okay. And I know that these words mean these things, but you're telling me that, well, you know, everybody, I don't know who everybody is because that's not how I use it. Right. And like, justice is such a big thing for me. Like, I've just been so hell-bent on what's just, what's equitable, what's equal, right? Like what's fair. So when you talk about like being fair and like taking accountability, it's like, you'll see right now, we're about to play this video from Jessie Woo. And so much of what she mentions, it's like, she starts off by saying, well, I understand being on the spectrum, and then proceeds to list all of these things that like lets me know you don't understand. You don't,
yeah.
Because everything you're listing is like, it's because she's autistic. Like, well, I understand that.
And to Madison's point, the accountability piece and the way that you go about things is also because you are self-aware. So you also know that if you were to be the one calling the shots, you would do things that made it easier for you and less uncomfortable for you, which is why you spend so much time being like, what is it you need? What do you need? How do you do this? Because I know if left to me and my own devices, we're going to eat where I want to eat because I know for sure that I will like something there. We're going to go where I want to go because I know for sure I can handle the environment there. But I try very hard to like make it fair so that it's not about me. But because you're asking those questions, neurotypicals take it as you trying to get your way. And you're literally like not doing that. You're trying to make space for them and make it fair. And they're like, well, you just want your own way. And you're like, I didn't realize that asking you how you wanted things meant that I wanted things my way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. It's wild.
Okay.
Yeah.
One more thing. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, last note, like we're talking about accountability and she's coming from a place of authority. I really do not respect her approach at all. She could have come to it and actually educated people. It felt like she was just trying to correct and belittle instead of saying, well, this is what this is. This could present this way. This might be like that. Like, if she's presenting herself as this expert, why? I mean, I can guess why for the clips, but why she chose to go after and address one person who has specifically said, my diagnosis is not up for other people to speculate on. So for a professional to be speculating on one person and arguing with it and downplaying it instead of using their education to educate, like, I don't like any part of the way she did anything at all, ever.
And Kimmy, to your point, you just reminded me that instead of actually using her knowledge, I'm going to use her quotes, on autism, she circumvents that and then says that would be a whole other video. But bitch, you are currently, excuse my language, ma'am, lady, doctor, whatever. You are currently trying to discuss someone else's autism. And if you're going to do that, and discredit them, then I need what you know on autism, babes. You can't just sit here and be like, I mean, that would be a whole other video. Okay.
No, it needs to be this video.
Yeah.
Whatever video never mind. Anyways,
Madison
one more
had
thing.
something?
Yeah, for sure.
I was especially disappointed when she kind of spoke for the autistic community because she said it's kind of a slap in the face to autistic people for Amanda to self-diagnose herself, when it took me a year to realize that I was on the spectrum. I took so many tests. I read so many books. I went to every social media platform, whether it was TikTok, YouTube, Reddit. Like, I was like just reading other people's experiences. And one thing that I found very obvious was that it is okay to self-diagnose. This stuff that is very accepted in the community because of the barriers to diagnosis, accurate diagnosis for adults, for your different minorities, for what happens after you become diagnosed and the limitations placed on you by our government, by other government. And it's just like, she positions herself as a what's the word? Sorry, guys.
Expert, authority.
As an expert on it, by titling it Therapist Reacts, by putting her little plaque in the background, and she just has this condescending tone. And I was just really disappointed that she was so wrong.
And it lets me, and again, it lets me know that she's not done a lick of research, because if she had done just a little bit of research, she would have known, not only is it not a slap in the face to folks on the spectrum, to neurodivergent people, we're constantly the ones saying, hey, it's valid, stop, right? And that's what I meant by we're catching strays. Now, Kimmy, can you play, we're going to bring up a clip. And the reason that I'm playing this clip is I need people to understand, because so often when we talk about these things, when we talk about advocacy, issues that are a matter of advocacy, or we want to advocate for other issues, a lot of times people will say, try to downplay it, or not understand the importance, not understand the connection, or say it's just online, or it's not that big of a deal. I need y'all to understand that this has real life implications. And when I say real life implications, I do mean like life, death, safety. Okay. For context, my brother was murdered by the Oakland police when I was in elementary school. Okay. So that's my first interaction with police. And then I grew up in the suburbs and went to private school my entire life. So I've had interactions with police in my own neighborhood, with police asking if I belong here, and me needing to show ID, and me needing to carry ID at a very young age, right? Biking home or walking home from school, being stopped, right? In Arkansas, I was at a county fair with my cousins. This was my Katrina semester. For those of you guys who remember Hurricane Katrina, I was in Arkansas, raised in California, went to college in New Orleans, but I was in Arkansas for my Katrina semester. Never wanted to be there, but I'm at a county fair. Our little cousins are riding the rides. We're standing around waiting for our little cousins to get off of the ride. The police come up to us and tell us to move along. Cousin then responds, oh, we're waiting for our little cousin to get off, right? And I mean, like, little cousin. Like, we're not going to leave our little cousin behind. Like, we're not going to walk away. Then he gets off the ride. Then they get off the ride and we can't find us, right? Like, we're not, no loitering. You need to move along. Long story short, I end up on the ground, physically assaulted by police. I've had other issues where I'm now clearly distressed having an interaction with the police, because again, somebody has called the police on me in my own neighborhood because I look suspicious in my own neighborhood where I have lived for almost my entire life. Somebody's called the police on me and said I look suspicious. The police have come up to me, asked me to show ID, asked me, what am I doing here? Said I don't belong here. And then when I'm not responding the way they want me to, right? Because if you get too loud, if you get too hype, that can be a problem too. So what's your problem? Why do you have an attitude? What's the problem? And I said, well, you're a cop. I'm a little bit nervous. Oh, wow. You people are just so ridiculous. Wow. So I'm a cop, so you need to be scared of me. This is ridiculous. Like, you people, and then just goes on this tirade. And he says, now let me guess. You're going to say I'm being aggressive now, right? Now you're going to say I'm harassing you. It just starts cussing me out. right? These are some of my experiences with police. So when I was pulled over recently, I did not have my headlights on. It had gotten dark while I was driving. I happened to be on a video chat with Kimmy. Now, hands-free, my phone is, I have a Z Flip, okay? Z Flip, and I sit it on my dashboard. It was sitting on my dashboard. This is why Kimmy was able to record it, because it was sitting on my dashboard and we were on a video chat. I get pulled over. Well, first I see the cop behind me. I'm just kind of like setting up this video. I see the cop behind me and I immediately say to Kimmy, I'm like, there's a cop behind me. I think, is this a cop? I think there's a cop behind me. And then I cross the intersection and the lights start going, the lights and the sirens. And immediately my heart starts racing. And I pull over. And Kimmy already knows a little bit about my background. She knows a little bit of this context. She knows about my interactions with police, right? So she immediately starts trying to like keep me calm and like, which I'm very grateful for, right? And so I'm at this point where I am just trying to stave off an anxiety attack, because the last time that I was pulled over, apparently it was for speeding. I blacked out the entire situation. The only reason I know it happened is because I ended up getting a ticket in the mail later saying I had like an unpaid ticket. And I was like, what are they talking about? And I went back through, and because I record all of my interactions, and I had to replay the thing. I did not remember any of it. My mind had blacked it out, right? Like these are typical trauma responses. I had blacked it out. So Kimmy says, she immediately starts recording it, screen recording, and then just sort of like talking me through it, like trying to keep me calm. But I'm trying to stave off a panic attack. But I also know that the last time that I was honest about being nervous and about being anxious, it only escalated the situation, right? So you're going to kind of see what's happening here. And I just want people to understand, like, this has like real life implications, right? And we talk a lot about how anxiety manifests as anger in Black women, or I won't say it manifests, is that it's perceived as anger in Black women. And it wasn't until I watched this video back and I saw like from, like the outside, I was watching me, that I realized, oh, I could see how somebody could see that as me being angry or annoyed or anything other than what I was, which was terrified and anxious, right? My watch is going off because my heart rate is sky high. I'm shaking. Like you can actually hear the cop saying, ma'am, you're shaking. Do I need to call like medical or whatever, right? And I'm not responding because the last time they asked what's wrong, I got cussed out and the situation escalated. So it's more than just online interactions. It's more than just, I want everybody to understand what neurodivergence is. I need people to know that, like, don't automatically assume because I'm a Black woman that I'm angry, or that like it could be something else, right? And I've had to even tell other Black friends this, right? So Kimmy, if you're ready for
Yeah. Is it?
I only see
There we go.
unseen.
Okay.
There we go. We're gonna play it fast, mainly because I don't want to watch it.
I don't have. It won't do 1.75. Do you want one
Just
and
go
a half
ahead.
or
Just
two?
go, yeah,
Okay.
1.5 is fine.
You okay? Huh? Are you okay?
Can you hear it?
Now, mind you, I'm looking for my insurance card. I usually keep everything. You can keep playing it, Kim. You don't need to pause it. I'm looking for my insurance card. And because I'm starting to panic, I overlook it. So it is where I normally keep it, but it's small and I've overlooked it. Go back a little bit. Kimmy, rewind just a touch right before it.
Okay, are you okay? You managed to come pick you up?
I'm fine. Because you're a cop. I can't find my fucking registration.
It's okay, Smalls. You're okay. It's there.
Sure, it's fine. Everybody's gonna have a good day. Okay? There's nothing to worry about now. You're good.
You're okay, Smalls. It's there.
It's really not that big of a deal, right? But it's just rushing to the life, but somebody can see you, how the relationship go. So maybe kind of talk to you. Maybe you're good to go. Go ahead.
I have to get my insurance on it at my house. Right, can I look at my insurance? I'm trying to look for it. No, my parents sent it to me. Am I going right here?
Oh, the clicking is because I was doing it on my phone before I could do the screen one. So I was switching over. Sorry. Do you want to do the second part too? Oh, she took a break. Okay, since she's not back, I'm gonna assume that maybe she wanted to do the second part too. Okay. Yeah, I wasn't watching the screen, so I didn't realize that. Oh, let me speed it back up again.
Just when you find it, just give it to my partner right there, okay? He's the guy to your right, okay? Thank you.
I started the.
So, mind you, he says this is what I mean by like awareness and like understanding, because I'm looking for the insurance card. I'm trying not to panic. My watch keeps vibrating, telling me my heart rate is up. My face is starting to go numb. I don't know if you guys have ever, if any of y'all watching or whatever have ever hyperventilated or not been able to breathe, but your face starts to tingle. Your face starts to sort of like go numb and like spasm almost. So like my face is starting to spasm. My arm is like I'm having physiological responses now to this panic attack. And he says, and credit to him, he actually was not an asshole, right? Like this might have actually been one of the most, if not the most pleasant interactions. And I say pleasant, right? But I just mean like he was just so not an asshole that whatever. But then he says, hey, when you find it, just give it to my partner there. And then I sort of like immediately alert to, there's more than one of you motherfuckers here. Like, oh my God, right? And I realize this other asshole, I'm saying that this other guy has his flashlight shining directly in my window, right? So I can't see his face, and he's got his hand on his weapon, and he's shining the flashlight into my face, and he's like, yeah, just hand it to him. And now I'm like, I gotta be mindful of both of y'all. Like, what is happening right now, right? Like, so he just like makes it worse, even though like I don't think he realized that he was making it worse. But like when we talk about reform or like defunding the police or like whatever your views on it are, at the very least when we talk about harm reduction, like we need police to understand neurodivergence and mental health and like the ways in which these things manifest in real life, right? We wouldn't have possibly Sandra Bland, we wouldn't have these situations where they escalate. Maybe we wouldn't. Maybe we would have less situations where they're escalating the issue. Maybe we would have less situations where autistic people are getting killed and shot because they don't understand, or even deaf people who are signing to them, who are saying, I cannot hear you, and are getting shot and killed because of this, right? So like when we talk about neurodivergence and we talk about neurodivergent people catching strays and the importance of educating and increasing awareness, it's because it has real life implications, right? Like I hate when people say like online and then in real life. Like online is real life, but these have implications both online and off.
Yeah.
Right? Like this is not a situation unique to me. We just happened to catch it because I happened to be on video chat with Kimmy, and Kimmy just immediately, like knowing my history, like immediately started recording, not only for my safety, mainly for my safety, I would imagine. But Kimmy, I kind of wanted you to like speak on, because when I watched it back for the first time, I went, oh, my face was really blank and I wasn't responding to him initially. And I know why I wasn't responding. And then I finally said, nope. Because he said, do you need medical? And I was like, well, don't call the ambulance, because if you call the ambulance, they're going to charge me for that. Don't call the damn ambulance. And so I said, nope. And then he says, well, what's wrong? Why are you shaking? And I realized he's not going to let this go. I have to give him an answer. And I say, because you're a cop. Like I'm frustrated, but I didn't answer initially because the last time I said it, it escalated the situation. Last time I was honest, the last time I was direct, it escalated the situation. So Kimmy, I'm just wondering, like, what were your thoughts knowing that like, you knew like what was happening, but when I look back, I'm like, oh, I could see how somebody might think that I was just angry or annoyed or being an ass, or like some of the stuff that we see people say about Black people in encounters with police.
Yeah. So, I mean, back to even like the ADHD and the medication and all, my experience with cops has been so different. When you first had a cop behind you, and like clocked him and realized, and then when you started getting pulled over and all that stuff, me sitting here at my desk, it felt scarier than when I've literally been pulled over before. It was seeing, and obviously I think people have to try to be ignorant to not see what happens in the news and things like that. You know that scary things happen, but then when, to the extent I could be on the other side of a phone, you're like involved in it and it's someone you care about, and knowing like how horrified you were and the history, but also knowing the cop doesn't know anything, who knows what's going on with him. And it was very clear that you were horrified and distraught. And so when you said, because you're a cop, it was harsh. And in my mind, I was like, oh no, like, no. But I think the way he had already acted, I kind of hoped that he would register it properly. It just, I don't know. It's hard to explain. It was, yeah, I'm for such a talkative person, it's a really surreal experience again. And I mean, I wasn't even in it. Like I was just witnessing it, and it's scary.
Yeah. I was just wondering, just because like I watched it back and was kind of like, and I shouldn't do this, right? But I watched it back and immediately was like, oh, well, I could see why somebody would think I was like almost blaming myself, right? Like that I wasn't expressive enough, or that I didn't display my anxiety in the right way. Like if I had, maybe cried, or like in my mind, I was just like, if I had expressed my anxiety in a different way, maybe he would have stopped asking, or he would have just known, or like, I don't know. Like I felt like almost like I had contributed to potentially escalating the situation, which I know, like,
no, you didn't.
Like I know
you
I didn't,
look
right?
terrified.
But, like,
you actually look terrified from the very beginning of this. At no point did I think that you were being, and this is why these conversations are important, because this is the first time I've like met you, like seeing you face to face, right?
Yeah.
And seeing that video, there was no point where I thought that you were being rude or harsh. From jump, I clearly saw that you were terrified. You did not look like, especially as you're going through the papers, I can see you like, I can see your mind just going to the point of like, this could be the end for me today. That's what I saw. Like, especially as you're just like shuffling through the paper. And maybe it's because like I because I live in small towns in Texas. I maybe last year got pulled over and was going through the same thing. And I hadn't really been that terrified of cops up until a few years before George Floyd and all of that. So I'm going through the same thing, just like reaching for things and grabbing things. You don't like, your mind kind of shuts off.
Yeah.
Because we know what they do to us. Like we're aware. So especially when it's dark, you're getting pulled over by the police. It is dark. You are aware that they can unalive you and they will get away with it. And your family will be left to pick up the pieces. You know that. So it's very, very difficult to be calm, whether you're neurodivergent or not. They should be able to see that someone is stressed. And I really feel like, especially at night, they need to have like cop mental health specialists. Like they need to be hand in hand, because this, I can't imagine seeing somebody reaching for things, and because I guarantee you, he probably saw that you had it at one point in time and probably was like, there it is, but didn't. So you're just still swiping through your paperwork. You see nothing. You're stressed. None of it makes any sense at this point. It's probably just a bunch of letters scrambling around on a page. And you're like, I didn't see that you were like rude or angry at all. I saw that you were scared at it. And because there's a second part
that's like 5 minutes long. And before I realized, I thought it just wanted to show the part where she says, "Because you're a cop." And
That was the
even
main
like,
part, yeah.
yeah. Well, but before that,
And the reason is because like when I watched it back, like I was like, oh well, yeah, I look mad, like I look annoyed, like I look like I was blaming myself, right? Like so, like hearing y'all say like, and I'm even seeing the comments like you're like, oh no, you didn't look like to me because like this is how I've had this experience in the past where I know I'm anxious, and the people on the other end have said, well, you looked angry, well, you look pissed off, and I'm like, well, that's the furthest thing from what I was. I was like, and so like I'm seeing it like, oh, okay, I guess, yeah, I looked angry, like
yeah. But like that's also you're able to perceive that like on a phone, recording a computer screen, then streaming through the internet, so it like looks like it was filmed on a potato. But when it's like regular speed and you can hear the tremor in her voice and like just really like it's really obvious. But even when it's obvious, the fact that still like there can still be a switch, like it doesn't matter if you're anxious or scared or whatever, if you talk back to the wrong one at the wrong time.
And I felt like the dude who was talking to me seemed cool, right? He seemed chill. But the other one, he never said a word, right? Like he just was shining the flashlight and then had his hand on his weapon, which to me is like, why do you need your hand on your weapon, right? Like I don't understand. I've never understood that. I don't understand it. I will never understand it. Like it felt like real intentional. I don't know. I don't know.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So we're gonna play. Were you about to say something? We're gonna get into this last.
I mean, I lost it again. I don't know.
That's not ADHD at all. What? I had a thought. It's gone.
All right, so we're gonna play this last video by Jessie Wu. And
I remember. Sorry.
Go ahead. Go for it.
Okay. I remember. And then after that call, when we were talking about it later, with you saying that you watched it back and you like realized maybe you look mad, we even talked where you were like, well, I don't know, what should I say? What do I do next time? And like having to plan and say, oh, okay, so next time I'll just say, well, I have anxiety. I'll point that out instead of it being, to like come away from that awful, horrifying experience where you're like terrified and say, all right, well, next time this happens to me, what do I do?
Yeah, because like I immediately started planning for the next time, right? Because there's going to be a next time, right? Like
I have bad news. It doesn't matter. You can't script for the cops.
Right.
It doesn't matter. I have been in the middle of a divorce. I'm crying. I'm upset. Not because of the divorce, but because I was losing my motorcycle. It was I think it got repossessed that night. And I was like, let me just go get some cigarettes. I got pulled over by a cop. I am crying. And he did not care. He did not give a shit. There was no reason for him to pull me over. I wasn't speeding. And he just proceeded to yell at me. I guess he was just having a bad day. Don't care. But there's no scripting for cops because even if they pull you over and you say, I have anxiety, you could get the wrong one who doesn't give a fuck about anxiety.
Yeah.
You could get the right one who's like, oh, well, let me go step by step and explain. But a lot of times you're going to get, I don't give a shit about your anxiety. Why are you anxious? Do you have drugs? Like they're going to keep trying to like throw you off balance. They're just awful. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I think you're right. I think you're right. Cause that was immediately like my first, like I left. Well, cause they wouldn't leave. And like, I really didn't want to like pull off while they were still there. But then Kimmy was like, a lot of times they will wait for you to leave first. So is there somewhere you can pull over? And I said, yes. Okay. So I pull over. And then eventually I ended up once they left, I went to a 7-Eleven. I just parked for a second. And I was like really planning for the next one, right? Like, I'm like, okay, I should have had all my stuff together. And then I found it, of course. I found my insurance card once I got there. I had already given them my registration and my driver's license and all this stuff, right? But it doesn't matter. But I was planning for it. But you're absolutely right, Audra. Like, it doesn't really matter because the first one who asked me, I told them, honestly, and I was just like, oh, well, a little bit nervous and I got cussed out. So you're right. I can't really control that. I can only control me. So. All right, so we're gonna play this last video. This is by Jessie Woo, who is, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Jessie Woo, but ever since like finding her channel, she is hilarious
and beautiful
and gorgeous. Oh my god,
so pretty.
It's disturbingly gorgeous.
She's doing the brown lip combo in this, like, girl.
You know, I've laughed out loud several times because, of course, since I've like discovered her channel, I've just been like going through and like watching a bunch of stuff that I've missed. So hilarious. So highly recommend the follow. And I will say that I don't know her personally. I don't know a ton about her, but I do know some of like the people that she like cross paths with. Again, like I know some of the people in the industry, and so based on who she's like cool with and kicks it with, I know that she's probably a bit more aware than most, right? Than your average like creator / celeb / influencer, right?
Yeah.
She's a bit more aware. She's got the like she's got the language, can connect the dots, this, that, and third. So that's why I think I was even more disappointed to hear her speak about this situation and really miss the point, right?
Oh, damn.
And, yeah, and like again, like there was things that she was saying, like, oh, I get autism, but and then would proceed to like list all these things about Amanda or what Amanda did wrong, or she would say, well, why couldn't you just do this? Well, I don't understand why you didn't just do that. And I'm literally in my room shouting, because she's autistic. Like I'm like, because she's autistic. Like you don't get it. Like you keep saying you get it, but it's so clear you don't. Like you fundamentally do not get it. And of course the self-diagnosis was just one thing, but it's just one of many. And we're not going to go through the whole thing.
Yeah, when you're autistic, it's always, why didn't you do this thing? And you're like, because that's not the way that I do the thing.
Yeah, and you're gonna see she mentions Amanda Seales responding like yes or no, or just responding very succinctly or whatever. And that's why we had the screenshot up earlier. And one of like the trauma responses that I have is like I over explain myself a lot. Like I'm very like verbose now in ways I did not used to be, because I used to be very direct, to the point, concise, like I pride myself on my communication, or at least I used to, right? And it was only once I started getting these responses and being told, you're a bitch, you're mean, why are you so dry, why are you this, why are you that? And I was like, what is happening? Or I would even like lose friends, like lose entire relationship, people just ghosting me. And then I find out years later, oh, it's because you said or did this thing. And I'm like, why didn't you tell me? Well, I mean, I was dropping hints. You know, I talked about this last time where my godson's mom was apparently dropping hints, asking for me to like leave because I'd flown out there to watch him while they had went on vacation. And at no point just made it clear, like, hey, we're about to have another guest and we don't have enough guest rooms. Like, you need to leave. I know your flight got messed up, but like, and so like I ended up like embarrassed, like in tears, because she finally was direct, but only after 50 hints that she dropped that I missed, right? Like, so you'll see she's talking about
stop dropping hints.
Yeah, don't do the
We're
hints.
not gonna get them.
I don't.
We have no idea.
Direct communication,
unless you go like, wink, wink.
Right, and I feel like hints and like it's so baked into our society. I think a lot of times people don't even realize that they're doing it, that they're not being as direct as they could be, right? Like they're just not. They're just used to us playing, you know, using riddles and speaking in these. Anyways, let's just get into it. Let's see. I'm gonna drop in the middle of the video because there's so much stuff we don't really need to see. She's talking about Shannon Sharpe not being that sharp and this not being the best platform for Amanda to go on. And let's see, is there any other context y'all need for this? She's watching the Shannon Sharpe interview with Amanda Seales. I think let's just.
Uncle Shannon is very attractive. He's very enjoyable to watch, in my opinion, right? However, watching him in the Cat Williams interview, in my video, I said, Shannon Sharpe and a lot of like red pill guys found themselves in my comments telling me, you know, stay in the kitchen. I don't know what I'm talking about. You know, it's not to get interviewed. His platform is not to interview the person. It's to give the person a space to speak. And it's like, bro, this is a podcast. It's a podcast. If you don't want to call it an interview, it's still a podcast. And a podcast, folks are going back and forth. It'd be ugly, like, you know, but he didn't do it outright. Cat Williams is just really cool with his words. But he was able to disarm Shannon and just interview himself, basically. Like he was able to overtake the interview and just interview himself. Then you had Monique, and I feel like Shannon Sharpe saw the commentary about Cat Williams and him not really giving Cat Williams much pushback. And even Cat said before he went on the show that he would watch Shannon let other comedians come on his platform and say whatever. So I feel like after the Cat Williams interview, Shannon saw that criticism and was like, okay, no, I do have to push back. I do have to ask more questions. And I kind of saw an uptick in that with Monique. But even with Monique was still able to disarm him. She would compliment him. Like, you know, she just was really good at disarming him and telling a joke here and there. And she was able to get to say what she wanted to say and steer the conversation back to the subject that she wanted to focus on. And yeah, I feel like I watched the Lil Rel interview a little bit, but the Lil Rel interview was not that entertaining to me. But yeah, he's had.
So what I wanted to mention here, what she's talking about is like charm or charisma or like being able to be like, you know, like she says, like Cat Williams being able to interview himself or disarm Shannon, or like that's not the way that I communicate, right? Like I'm a very like direct, black, white, it is what it is, like literal person, right? Like I don't feel like I'm very good at being like charming and like all the charisma. Like I feel like that's just not me. And I've heard a lot of other like neurodivergent people say that. I don't know. Do y'all have any experience with sort of like that social game in terms of communication?
I mean, I think when you're being interviewed, the goal is to talk about what it is that you came to talk about. Like, that's just me. And I'm not going to allow you to make me talk about things I don't want. Like that interview with the young lady from the young British girl. I don't know if you saw that a while back. She owned the interviewer because the interviewer was really trying to force out of her that she was a sex worker. And that's not what she came there to talk about. And she ended up getting like absolutely destroyed because the girl did not come there to talk about that. Right. So what this tells me is that Shannon Sharpe is just terrible at interviewing people, period, because he doesn't understand what they don't want to talk about and doesn't allow that to happen. He doesn't allow most of them to be gregarious and enjoy themselves. Like Cat Williams can do that because he's Cat Williams. But most of the time his interviews don't go well because he's bad at his job. Like that's the real tea there. Deacon, thank you.
And a lot of people who are Shannon's age come from that era, right? But also I would think Shannon being the age that he is would be able to
skip ahead a bit. Time.
At Sirius XM, and that story was wild. And I believe she talked about like somebody else offering her a job, but they were upset at how she would send out one-word answers. And I think one job was like, you know what? Hey, we're going to offer you this job, but we just don't like the way that you've been answering us. You've been giving these very short answers. And Shannon was like, but you were answering a yes or no question. She's like, yeah, but they wanted me to. And Shannon was like, what? They want you to shut the job for it? And she's like, yes, right? That part was a little cringe to me, but not just on Shannon's part, but I thought it was cringe on Amanda's part. Like, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you're going back and forth with someone in email and they're asking you yes or no questions, right? What harm is there in yes, please, or yes, that's correct, or yes, I would love to? What harm is there in that? That don't mean you're necessarily shucking and jiving, and you're just being polite. Yes, please, absolutely, I would love to.
Okay, so what we have here is Exhibit A. Jesse just finished talking about, hey, what harm is there in that? Like, why can't you just do that? It really sort of like blames Amanda for not giving more than one word answers, right? Here's an example, a very real life example of me going back and forth with my two co-facilitators for my BiPAN support group. And you see the message there, and you see my homie Armand says whatever he says, and then I just say, yo, I got June. That was it. Like that was my entire email, right?
Yeah.
That is my natural, like that is the way I communicate naturally, like, right? When I am my most comfortable. Now, these days I tend to be like I tend to be very verbose and like over explain, but it's because of situations like that. Well, you seem dry. Well, you seem like you were mad. Well, you seem like you didn't want it. I mean, you seem like you had an attitude. I mean, why couldn't you just be more flowery? So now I'm like, hello, sure, I don't mind doing June. If that's what you guys would like me to do, I can definitely do June for you and facilitate that. Like, I'm just adding words to be adding words because I want to make sure I don't come off a certain way, because I've been told so much that, yo, I got June is just not sufficient, or it means something other than what it means. I was in a good mood when I wrote this. I just was responding to the question.
And that's how I ended up getting like Shakespearean language, which sounds funny, but like I was trying to reach out to another creator. And I feel like it was for like Vlogmas, and I was trying to reach out to them. And I shit you not, I started it with good morrow. Because I didn't know what to say. So it literally starts, good morrow. I was wondering if you would, because I really just want to be like, do you want to do a collab for Vlogmas? The end. Like, why do I have to do so? And now I have the Shakespearean language to like call back to that situation, because what are you supposed, why do we have to do that? Why can't I just ask you the question? Because we're not, at that point, we weren't even like really friends. So why can't I just be like, do you want to do this? And then if they don't, be like, okay. And then if they do, be like, great, here are the details. It'll be fun to get to know you.
Yeah, I mean, y'all, the messages that I sent y'all, they were proofread by multiple people. Like I wrote them and rewrote, right? Like, and I'm communicating with 2 other neurodivergent people, and I was still worried because I was just like, I don't know, and I had Kimmy proofread them, I had another team member Jugad proofread them, and somebody else, and I was like, does it sound okay? Should we reword that? Okay, we'll change that. That does sound more collaborative. You're right. That's like I just wanted to be like, yo, I love your content. It's dope. We're gonna do this thing. Do you want to join? Like. But I've been told so many times that that's not sufficient. And it's not even a matter of professionalism. It's like, that's not enough. That's not the way this works. Madison, please.
Yeah, that's definitely why I don't respond to texts and emails as quickly as I should, because it feels like I am gearing up for war. Like I'm putting on a fire suit to go in. And it's like, because as a firefighter, I don't know if you've seen shows about firefighters, but you got to go in and see if that beam is about to fall down. Is the floor going to cave in over there? And it's like, you have to be so hyperactive of everything. That's how it feels responding to people's emails. I do want to just be able to say yes or no and then ask my question. But there's a part of me that knows that it's a problem, but it takes so much energy to type a whole, just make up nothing. Sometimes I've used ChatGPT, but before I had ChatGPT, I just took forever to respond. How do you come up with nothing?
As much as I don't love AI, I have used it a couple times. Like when I haven't had somebody that like a proofread or y'all would have gotten messages so long ago if I didn't have to go through these mental gymnastics of like, is this going to be okay? Like, I was a mass comm major. Like communication has always been what I felt like was my strength, right? Like always, I felt like it was my strength. It wasn't until I feel like I started getting beaten down by the world for y'all. I pledged a sorority in college. Okay,
you too.
We all made.
We
mistakes,
do.
Okay? I pledged a sorority in college.
Wait, Audra, you did too?
Oh yeah.
I remember seeing that in a
wild time.
That, Audra.
It was unnecessary.
You too? Oh Lord, we got.
Why did we do these things to ourselves?
I don't know.
Because you showed up and you're like, and they're like, why do you want to be here? You're like, I don't know. Everybody's doing this shit, I guess.
I did it because I was like looking for sisterhood, right? Like that was one of the 3 things that they said that I could get if I pledged a sorority was a sisterhood. I was already doing community service. I didn't really need them for the scholarship. I was looking for the sisterhood, right? And so I think that's what made it so much more painful, right? Because I was like the only obviously queer one. Like we weren't doing queer. Also, we weren't doing natural hair at the time, and I had natural hair. I've had natural hair for my whole life, and that wasn't a thing yet. And so I was asked to straighten my hair for the neophyte show, and like it was just bad. But also, here's what I wanted to say: we had an entire meeting with our line while we were online. We had an entire meeting about my texting. I had a few handful of people who were like, "Y'all are tripping. She uses a lot of emojis. She's not yelling at you," because at the time I used to type in all caps, and if I didn't, it was very direct. Like I can be very formal with my communication, right? And so I whatever. I just very grammatically correct, very proper, very that was just how I communicate. That's how I communicate my whole life. And that for whatever reason put them on edge. We're already online, and and I was the line president, also the ace, because I'm the shortest one. That's the only reason I was the ace, to be clear. And so I was the one that had to send out the text of the line, and they were like, every time I get a text from you, I just get so anxious and I get so nervous. They had an entire meeting about the way that I texted. And then when we went to a collegiate retreat, they had the chapter president brought it up again in front of the entire chapter and embarrassed the shit out of me. Y'all, when I tell you trauma, I've had trauma behind being who I am, neurodivergent. And like I said, I had a handful of people that were like, I do not understand the problem. She's not mad or yelling. She's using emojis. These are encouraging. Because I would be like, y'all, we got this. Just hang in there. Make sure you get all your work done. That's what y'all would have thought I was saying. Go jump off a cliff. Screw you. Y'all would have thought I was cussing them out at the way they were coming at me about my communication. When I tell y'all, anyway.
Well, Smalls, future reference, if you ever, you don't have to do all that next time. If you want to have me back again, you don't have to do all that. You can just be like, hey, you available on this date? This is what we're going to talk about. And I can yes or no it.
Bet. Now I know. All right, bet.
I've had a similar experience. I wonder, because you said you grew up in California, but then you went to school in New Orleans. I went to school in Mississippi. So coming from Michigan to Mississippi, there was a meeting, had a similar meeting about the way that I communicate. About the way that I communicate. I was a problem, let me tell you. And somebody made a comment and it really shocked me because she was the only other person in the chapter from Michigan. And she said that the way that I talk, basically that I sound uppity and I sound like I'm talking down to people and all this other stuff. And she's like, maybe it's because you're from up north. I'm like, girl, we from the same place, but it's like she grew up in the inner city and I grew up in the suburbs. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's because I sound like I'm from the suburb. At this point, I had no idea that I was neurodivergent, poor thing, but oh yeah, similar meetings.
That's so wild. Like, the more I talk to especially other Black neurodivergent people, the more that I come to the realization, like, I don't think I've masked most of my life, to the point where, like, I had a friend in high school and I feel like she was basically like my daily advocate. Like, I would just be walking through the school and, like, I guess people would say hi or whatever. I wasn't in the mood for all that shit that day. So I would just, like, keep going. And then, like, people would go to her and be like, is Audra mad at me? And she'd be like, oh no, Audra's just like that. Like, that was a regular occurrence. So
Yeah.
I gotta see your birth chart.
Listen.
Yeah, we might
Don't
need
tell
to
me
have
no
a
study because I actually want to guess. I'm not
an
gonna lie.
astrology session. I feel like the reason that I learned to mask is because, again, like how I was raised and like being raised so intentional, and like even though my mom is neurodivergent, she is a textbook extrovert, whereas I'm an introvert. She is like socialite, like local celeb. Like, when I say local celeb, I mean like not actually, but like low key, because I can be in the Bay Area and I can get stopped by people who will say, do you know a Helen? Are you? And I'm like, yes, I do. Yes. Like, because we also look like twins, right? Everybody knows her. Like, she's never at home. She's just always social. Like, she's the opposite of me in every way. And so I feel like that's what I said about when I discovered I was an introvert. I was like, oh, I've been performing extrovert this whole time. And once I finally realized I was an introvert, being able to just like let that go, oh my God, it was amazing. It was amazing. And that's how it feels like with like neurodivergence. That's why I wondered like how Amanda got to where she's gotten to without learning to mask, right? Without having to mask, which on the one end, I'm like, good for her. And on the other end, I'm like, dang, that's why you in this mess you in right now. Like,
I swear it's the creativity. I swear it's that.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're absolutely right. I think being in the industry young and like, but even here, like you'll hear Jessie Wu talk about, like in the beginning, this is the part I skipped, but in the beginning, Jessie Wu says, that people don't like Amanda Seales because she spends too much time talking about the fact that people don't like Amanda Seales, which I think there may be some truth to it in that, like, maybe she could focus on it less, but I don't think that that's really what it is, right? And she really sort of dismisses and diminishes the amount of concern that Amanda Seales has for not being likable, especially when likability is such an inherent factor of your success in the industry, right? Not just in any industry, really, especially as a Black one, but definitely Hollywood. Definitely,
people
it's not
find her
meritocracy.
off-putting, and I don't understand why. Like, I've seen her kind of, and she says that, and other people will tell me that she's off-putting, and then I go look at it, and I'm like, I don't know why she's off-putting to y'all.
Yeah, exactly. Like like I get it on paper, right? Like I know, and I say it because the things that she will go on to list are things that I'm like, oh, well, that was me. And yeah, I've had that feedback. Like I've been told, not cool, not good, not great, annoying, mean, blah, 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 dry, whatever. Anyways, let's, oh, wait, I forgot to add back to the stage. Where is it? Thank you, Kimmy.
Showcase a little more humanity. And that's something we're going to get to later on when it comes to Amanda. Because I feel like Amanda looks for a lot of humanity in others, but she doesn't display it. That's something we have to discuss. But there's also a part too where Shannon talked about the fact that a lot of times folks have to wear a Halloween costume. And I was like, damn, I'm surprised nobody cut that clip. I thought that clip was interesting. Get out there and dance. Okay, yeah. This is the part. And finally, I got an email that said, we decided to go with somebody else because but people need extra words. Like the normal way that things are read so that I could better protect myself. Right. Like that may be the truth, but you don't gotta tell it right now. You know it and good for you. Right. Hold that. Right. Hold that. You don't gotta tell it right now. It may have been a yes or no question, but people need extra words. I lost the job because I was answering yes or no questions.
How you lose a job if you answer yes or no? Because you added.
Because they were emailing me, asking me yes or no questions. Okay. And my responses were yes, and no. And then finally I got an email that said, we decided to go with somebody else because by your responses, it seems like you're not interested.
Well, you say answer yes or no.
So now you understand me. It took us a little bit, but you're here. So
then when you say yes, I would love it.
I'm sorry. So now you understand me. It took us a little bit, but you're here. I'm definitely gonna be using that. She gave us a lot of good one-liners in there. Definitely gonna be using that. But again, I just feel like although I don't feel like that should be enough for you to lose a job, I do feel like, okay, if somebody's asking you yes or no questions, yes, please. Yes, of course. Yes, I'd love to. Yes, absolutely. No, thank you. No, but like, what's the harm in that?
But that's the performance
Why,
that
I
we
feel like
don't
when
know.
somebody is just so short with you, when they're giving you a short yes or short no.
Don't ask me a yes or no question. If you
Can you
want
say that
extra
again?
shit.
What
So
you
that's
just
the
said?
performance that we don't know. That's the performance we don't know. Like, why would you ask me, do you want to do X? I'm going to go, yeah, yes or no. If you want more, you need to say, do you want to do X and why? Or what? You have to like add the extra, because why do you need all this bullshit? You're like irritating me at that point.
Bullshit is what it is.
It's egotistical.
Yeah, you're just trying to like force me to dance for what? And this is a cross race and gender. Like, you're trying to make me dance for what?
Yeah. If nothing else, it's egocentric, right? It's the idea that the way that your brain operates, the things that seem common sense or natural or inherent or obvious to you must be common sense, inherent, natural, or obvious to everybody else. But that's just not the case, right? Like, this is not obvious to me. Like, the fact that you needed more was not obvious to me. The fact that like we're not supposed to be able to like two people, two boys, or have a crush on two people at the same time was not obvious to me. Like, that needed to be spelled out, because that's not the way that my brain works.
Thank you.
The Ava in the
That doesn't translate
comments,
especially not
absolutely,
email.
yes.
Because they're not face to face with you. They can't see your heart. They can't feel your spirit. They can't see your tone. So it comes off very like standoffish. And I'm sorry, if I'm hiring people.
My bad, Madison. Were you talking about this comment?
Yeah, I said absolutely. It's different. If a man were to communicate the way we communicate, it's just he's direct. He's about business. He knows what he wants. He communicates a little differently, but he's a good guy.
Yeah, let me read the comment. Ava says, "Hey, all about the communication criticism. I wonder if women and femmes have more societal expectations for it." Absolutely, 100%. We talked about this last stream where y'all tell me, have y'all ever been told that you have a strong personality, or have you ever heard those words?
A lot.
Oh, okay.
A lot.
Yeah.
Because I've heard it. I've heard it from other neurodivergent people. I've heard it from other Black people. I've heard it from our co-host, right? Like, well, don't take this the wrong way, because I mean, I don't necessarily think this, but like, you have a strong personality, right? Like, okay. And then I said, well, what does strong personality mean? And then all the things that they proceeded to list were not necessarily bad. It was assertive, clear, direct communication. Like, you just know what you want, you say it, okay. And that's off-putting? Well, yeah, because, well, why? Well, because, and then they really couldn't spell it out. And then we had to get to the point where like, if I was a man, would you say I have a strong personality, or would I just be a man? Right? Like,
I've only met one person that I actually thought had a strong personality, and they had a drug problem. So like, so to me, there's nobody else. Like, I have not come across a Black woman or femme that I've ever thought was too much. And I'm if anybody tells you too much, that you're too much for them, that they're just not the right people for you. Get away from these people.
It's like when somebody says you're intimidating. And then I used to internalize that when I was a kid. And then I finally heard another Black woman say, no, you're intimidated. There's a difference, and that's not my problem. And I was speak into my life. Like, yes.
Yeah, I'm not. That's why I use Marco Polo, man.
I'm going to hire someone who displays a little bit more humanity than that. But for her, she's like, oh, people need extra words. Yeah, we do. Yeah. Nice thing to do. But anyway, let's continue.
So they wanted to say, yes, I would love to have a job because I think this is an amazing opportunity for me. And I just love this company. I think it.
Get out there and dance, nigga.
But Amanda.
And Black people do it to each other.
Amanda, we had the conversation up earlier. What did we say? If you understand the rules.
No, I didn't understand the rules. I'm just talking back. I didn't understand the rules. I was saying that
apparently helped you.
Yes. But even still, it's like understanding the rules and like, then you are who you are. Like, that ends up being in conflict with each other so often. You know what I'm saying? Like, you understand the rules, but you're like, in order for me to like play this game, I gotta like do a whole renovation of self. It's not gonna be an upgrade.
I don't know. I feel like my sister is constantly like in this fight that doesn't have to be there. And like Shannon was saying, it can come off a little cringy, but if you listen to what he's saying, it's like, Amanda, if you understand the rules, like all of us, like if you've gone to school, right? Remember when you were in high school and they started teaching you about how to apply for jobs, and this is how you write an email. I don't know how to do it now, but this is how you write a cover letter. This is how you answer emails. This is your heading. This is your closing. These are just courteous things that I was taught in school how to communicate when going back and forth regarding a job opportunity. Yes, thank you so much for the opportunity.
And girl, let me just tell you, all of those things are exhausting to us. We are tired. It's so exhausting. Like it's
Exhausting.
mad stressful to have to like craft these perfect
Also,
emails with all this. Like it just sucks all the life
nobody
out of you.
told me I needed to be wordy or flowery, right? They said to be
Yeah.
professional, to be clear, to be direct, to make sure you have
Check for
proper
spelling.
punctuation and grammar, check for spelling. Nobody said I needed to, as Jesse Wu says, shuck and jive. Nobody gave me that part in school, right? I had to
And
learn that the hard way.
And they say, like, I promise that the majority of autistic people who are unemployed, because I feel like there's only like 15% of us that are actually like gainfully employed. And I promise you, it's all of this extra bullshit you have to do to get a job. Like the cover letter, what is that for? Why do I need to do that? They won't explain it. But why do I need a cover letter? I
Or why do
literally
you
gave
need
you
to-
my resume. Why am
Why
I
do you
doing
need
a
to fill out the
resume
application
and
send
filled?
in your resume?
Yeah, why am I doing all of this shit? Like, then I go to the interview. Why are you asking the question on the resume? Like, none of this makes sense. I get there and they're like, so what did you do before here? I'm like, bitch, do you have my resume?
Right.
You know what I did. Why
Right.
are we having this conversation? Why do you want this job? Why do I have to pretend that it's for any other reason other than I need money?
Right. Let's get back to
Till this day, when I get contacted to do partnerships with a brand, or even like some of the ads that we get here on YouTube, going back and forth. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It don't hurt me to say that. Am I shoving and jiving when I do that? It hurts me none to just say that. And usually they remember you
It
for being that
hurts
courteous.
you.
Because a lot of people
none.
are just giving like, all right, cool.
Say that
Like
again.
if people just knew, I said you. She said it hurts you none. It hurts you none. It hurts you none. And I feel like if people just knew what autism, like people don't understand what autism is, except for maybe like extreme cases or like the white boy that they do studies on, like just that one little child, that little adolescent. They don't really know what it looks like, so they have no patience for anybody who differs from the norm, and it's very
No
aggravating to
patience.
watch.
No patience, no tolerance, no grace, no nothing. Just, well, you could just be different, right? I remember Amanda saying, I could change, like in response to what Shannon Sharp was saying. She said, I could change, I could do renovations on who I am, but it wouldn't be an upgrade, right? Like for neurotypical people, it would be seen as an upgrade, but we know like changing who we are inherently to make them feel more comfortable, because that's really what it's about, right? Making them feel more comfortable and normal and quote unquote whatever isn't necessarily an upgrade to who we are. It's just different.
Just saying, let's continue. It's just me really just trying to mask to become palatable to you.
But don't you think realistically, there are a lot more people that dress in Halloween costumes year round as opposed to just on that day?
I do not want to be those people, and those are not the people that change the world. And that's what I'm here to do.
I
And
wrote
I
that
literally got my
down.
master's because Rich Bova on the campus of Purchase College stopped me and held my hand because he was a psychic. He was doing readings for people. And he just held my hand and was like, well, you gotta go get your master's. And I was like, God, I don't know. I just feel like there's nothing wrong with that. And like how Shannon was saying, don't you feel there are a lot of people who do wear a Halloween costume year round? Like he's not saying that you have to act like something you're not all the time, but there are times when you have to just bow down.
That's
a little
exactly
bit.
what he
That's just part of life.
said.
That's part of playing the game of life. It's not just a Hollywood thing. It's just playing the game of life. People who
That's exactly what he's saying.
Okay, that's exactly what he said. Okay, that's what I thought.
That's exactly what he's saying.
Okay.
Wearing the Halloween costume all year round is what else would it be?
who are sweeter get more
In
honey.
a second.
You get more things with honey. You just do. Just being sweeter and kinder and showing us a little bit more empathy. You'll get more in life. But I wanted to talk about, she had
also, that phrasing is incorrect. I just want to say that.
I was also just about to say, I hate that she likens it to empathy, right? Like to a lack of empathy for not playing the social game the way that they want it played.
I hate it when people say you catch more bees with honey, because it's not the honey that you're catching them with. It's the pollen. It's really frustrating. Stop saying that.
Also,
I know it's dumb, but
very, very neurodivergent, very, very neurodivergent response.
I'm sorry, I hate it.
Incorrect.
It is incorrect. That's not how you catch bees. It's because they make honey.
Actually, what you do is you get the queen, and then you move the queen, and then the rest will follow. If you really want to catch the whole hive,
See,
I was thinking if bees caught me with honey, they might attack me.
Thank you. Like they make honey. That's not how you catch them. You have flowers. That's how you catch bees. They get the pollen. They take, anyways.
But we're wrong. But we're wrong. Okay. Were you gonna say something?
That's wild, because I've heard you catch more flies with honey, which has never
Who wants
made
to
sense.
fly?
Right, but also like you catch more flies with horse crap. So even when people
True.
say that saying, like,
Yeah, you don't
That's
like you
still
can
incorrect.
catch the fly, like literally you can catch the fly in the honey because it gets over there and it gets stuck.
but
But
so wait,
like
now I'm gonna have to Google though. Have I just
Let's
thought?
keep going.
Yeah, you keep going.
Let's keep going.
And she said Jeff Foxworthy, and she was talking about
I
how
know
her
where that's-
experience with Chrissy Teigen was better than her experience on Insecure. I thought that was interesting. Not to say that I have anything negative to say about Chrissy Teigen, I don't, but I thought that was interesting. And she talked about how Jeff Foxworthy, a white guy, would step in for her a lot at the job. I thought that was interesting. It made me sad that she found more solace in non-Black spaces. I thought that was sad. Later on, she talked about colorism a bit and how it took her a while to really understand how colorism worked. You know, I think as a light-skinned woman, colorism does really beat light-skinned people's ass because a lot of light-skinned people think there's such a thing as reverse colorism. And when you hear her in an interview, I appreciated her saying, no, I had to understand that there's no such thing. And even me as a dark-skinned woman, I've experienced a lot of colorism growing up. I've been colorist to other dark-skinned women because I experienced so much of it. The other day I was on a panel talking about colorism, and there was another dark-skinned woman on the panel that was saying that even till this day, she struggles with not looking at lighter skin as beauty versus her skin. And I was like, damn, do I still struggle with that? I think there's a part of me that does still struggle with that because when you look around, light-skinned people still do, light-skinned, biracial, ambiguous-looking women or people still get preferential treatment within our community and outside of our community, and other communities as well. She, I think he brought up her mom being white again because she said something about her aunt being with someone white, I believe. But that led Amanda to talk about the fact that both of her grandmothers, I think both of her grandmothers are great-grandmothers. I think one grandmother and one great-grandmother, can't remember what side of the family, whether it was her mom or her dad, she talked about them being sexually violated and how it led to her being her skin tone. I think that that's a really hot topic. And if she were speaking with someone with more range, we could have got more understanding about her experience with colorism and her experience with, folks automatically assuming that she is half white because of her light skin, and how sometimes that can be harmful to her. Because I do feel like we know all light skinned people aren't biracial, right? We know that. But a lot of times they're treated as such. We're seeing right now with Beyonce. Beyonce did a whole video, showcasing her using her sacred products. And now the discord is, well, she's not totally Black. That's why she has that type of hair. Mind you, there are dark-skinned women. I know dark-skinned women with the same hair texture as Beyonce. You know what I'm saying? Having certain hair textures are not always attributed to someone's Blackness. There are Dominicans who are no Black, who have nappy hair, who have coiled hair, right? And they go out of their way to strengthen it because they are anti-Black, but their hair ain't, right? So that is a conversation. It's a loaded conversation.
Just a
About
quick
different
note.
characters, and I started learning more, like from people like Holly Robinson Peete. Like,
Go ahead.
I mean, she was talking about colorism and really going in on like there are light skinned. That's not just Black people, but it generally isn't Black people saying that. And there are dark skinned people who have quote unquote ethnocentric features that keep getting told. Like I've been told that. I've also been mistaken for Nigerian. I don't know what that means. I've had people who are Nigerian roll up on me. I don't know what language they were speaking. It was kind of cool. They were speaking it to me. I was looking at them like, and then they were like, "Oh, you're not Nigerian?" And I was like, "I am not. But well, thank you." But if you were pretty, basically, and Black, white people generally assume you are not all Black because they have to like contextualize why they find you a dirty Black attractive.
There's a reason other than your Blackness that explains this thing that I'm deeming desirable or attractive or beautiful or whatever.
Yeah, they're like, you can't possibly be beautiful because you're Black, so you must have white there.
Yeah. All right, so let's see. I want to go to, I got another timestamp. It's the last one, I think.
You align yourself with integrity and work independently, then you can still have a fruitful career. And I think that would be career changing for a lot of folks and for expanding the idea of what a career in this industry actually can be. So, Mr. Sharp, if you were to have me on the show, I could make myself available.
This was before all the Black publications and all that were slamming her. Even back then, she was talking about how she's misunderstood and how she wants, to have a platform that she thinks it is a safe place and all that. And mind you, that just begs the question too, what do you see as a safe place? What do you see as a safe space? Because I don't know, to have the conversations that Amanda wanted and needed to have, I don't think Club Shay Shay was the place to have those conversations. Just to my opinion. Maybe some of you guys would disagree, but I don't think that was the platform to have those. Waves the way that have that conversation. And a lot of people are not ready to have a conversation about neurodivergent people and how they process things. But also it was kind of cringe to watch Amanda kind of lean into her neurodivergence and her autism diagnosis and make that the reason for why she behaves the way that she does. Because if that's the case, then I know a lot of autistic people. If that's the case, it's a lot of us that are autistic.
Then you do.
God forbid.
Oh
God
my
forbid that
God.
she uses her diagnosis to explain behaviors. God forbid.
Right. Like you're talking to somebody on the phone and you're snorking and you're coughing. Don't tell them that you have a cold. Because otherwise.
I'm so glad y'all had the same reaction I had. I as soon as that played, I was looking at the screen. Y'all had the same reaction I had the first 5 times I heard that. Because
then I know a lot of autistic people. Yeah, girl, you do. You probably do.
That was me yelling at my screen. I mean, I didn't like, it was kind of cringe how she leaned into her autism diagnosis to explain her behavior. What other reason would you give your autism diagnosis?
I think Black people in this country have had to contort ourselves so much in order to survive. We genuinely cannot comprehend having a reason behind anything that we do, having an explanation. Oh, I'm not going to go in because I feel sick today. You're not allowed to feel sick. Get up and go work. Like we just have to twist. And so everybody just expects us to twist, but some of us are untwistable.
And then she said, well, if that's the case, I know a lot of autistic people. You probably do.
Thank you. We are everywhere. We are looking you in your face. And it's so frustrating to have our experiences invalidated over and over. Because especially in the realm of social media, when someone is trying to explain that the reason that I'm behaving this way is because I have ADHD, it is not an excuse. We are giving you the reason for it, right? And we're going to like maybe explain more beyond that. But I have to tell people almost every single day, because I am a mail carrier and I can spend anywhere from 5 to, depending on the day, to like 7 hours not speaking to another human being all day. So when I get back to the office, I don't have any tone, because I haven't had to work on that for all day. I've just been in my head, listening to music, listening to books, da da da. So when somebody asks me something, I'm like, I don't know, I just like I haven't been speaking, so I don't have any tone. I have to work on that. Like it's probably a big reason why every morning I talk to myself for like a few hours, so that the first few hours that I'm in the office, I have like a level tone that's appropriate, right? But like, so it's not saying like, oh, I don't give a shit about you, or I'm explaining to you, I am autistic. As such, if I don't talk most of the day, I can either sound argumentative or like I don't give a shit about whatever it is you're saying to me.
Right.
But it's just because I haven't talked to anybody. You have to give me a little bit of time to get like my tone back.
Well, if y'all thought that was bad.
No, don't
week.
make me just.
Listen. I'm keeping it light. I'm having a lighthearted joke about that during Black Women's I'm Not Only Little Friends Month. But let's be for real. Being autistic is not an excuse for not having empathy. And I want to get to that when it comes to Amanda. I want to say this.
Anybody want to tackle that one?
I don't know how. I really don't know how.
What does she think autism means and does? Like, what does that word mean to her in her mind, do you think?
I just want to, just for anybody who's unclear. So she just said, being autistic is not an excuse for not having empathy. Okay. So I realize let me make it plain for those who don't know, since this is about education and awareness. It quite literally is, though. Now, not all autistic people lack empathy or struggle with empathy or have to learn empathy, but many do. Many absolutely do. It is not something that is just inherent in every single person with autism. It is, and I'm kind of shocked by that, because that to me tells me, like, I thought it was like, oh, you just don't understand how autism manifests in like Black women and femmes and like Black people. you don't know anything about autism, because that's
Not
actually
one
one of the
Google.
most common. That's one of the most common pieces of information, or really misconceptions or myth, that everybody with autism lacks empathy. But it's one of the most commonly known things, that autism and empathy. What do you mean having autism is not an excuse for not having empathy? It quite literally is.
But
That's why
also,
I
I
didn't know how
swear
to
these
tackle
people
it.
watched like Rain Man and The Good Doctor, and they were like, I understand autism now.
They didn't even do
That's-
that. Couldn't
That's
have.
why I didn't know how to tackle it, because on one hand, it is that assumption that's like the number one stereotype. But then on the other hand, there's a lot of, especially for women, it's like hyper empathy. I don't think Amanda has a problem with empathy. I think people don't know how to communicate, and they like to label and put negative labels on her. And it's just not making sense. But once it makes sense, I don't think she specifically has a problem with empathy.
Yep. Big agree. All right, we're gonna
Initially watching this interview, Amanda Seales got so much support, and predominantly so because people saw how Shannon was just not the person for her to have these conversations with. Shannon is not sharp at all outside of sports, right? And I kind of saw the internet turn on Shannon, which, while the interview was very cringe, I think it's kind of unfair to turn Shannon into a villain here, because again, Amanda has to be on this man show.
Oh no,
Amanda
Shannon's
has seen
feelings.
this man and how he conducts his interviews. Now,
Girl, I know you're not going to be on the side
I
of a
refuse
man
to believe
in
that she went on this platform without doing
2024.
research. She went on there April 18th. She had plenty of time.
How did she find empathy for Shannon, but no empathy for Amanda? Like, how did you watch that interview and find empathy for Shannon?
Bruh.
Thank you.
The man who said that the kids calling her the N-word were just kids. That wasn't racist. A
Were you
child calling
perfect
another
as a
child
kid?
N-word is not racist. Because kids will be kids and they don't know any better. Okay.
I can't fathom that. Like, I can't fathom her. Like Madison was saying, I cannot fathom you having all the empathy in the world for Shannon. Be like, oh, well, and you keep saying he wasn't the best person for this interview.
For the man advocating for the devil. You got empathy for the man advocating for the devil. Okay.
Thank you. Okay. And you're like, oh, he wasn't the person for this interview.
Sounds like an excuse.
Now you suddenly have an excuse for him. Right. But you don't have anything for her. Like, well, she could have done this. She could have done that. She could have. It feels very victim blamey. And I feel like this is why Black people in general with neurodivergence and mental health will not progress past, because they're insistent on acting like it doesn't actually exist for us. Mm-hmm. Like, there's always this box of like, this is what it should look like. And if it doesn't look like that, then so sorry, you don't have it. F off.
Here's what I don't understand. I'm so like paranoid about like saying the wrong things, getting something wrong, that like I will spend hours and days researching things I know I already know. Mm-hmm. So the fact that people can come online, and what makes it worse is that I am such a fan of Jessie Wu, right? I think that's what made it so disappointing.
I know, I like her.
This is not usually her, bruh. Like this is not usually her, right? But to speak with such authority, to give your opinion and do no research, because you can't tell me she did. Like I just cannot imagine that you put this into Google and came away with these same takes. And that's what's painful and so disappointing and so harmful especially when you have such a large platform, especially when people know that you go up for Black women. So if people know, well, you ride for Black women, and if you ride for Black women, but you're not here and you're saying these things about Amanda Seales, well, you must be correct. She must be wrong. Right. Like, that's what made it so much more painful, because it's like you didn't do a lick of research, but you're speaking with such authority. And that is dangerous.
Because I did on Instagram, I took something that Amanda Seales was talking about, and I shared it on my stories. And I put also self-diagnosis is very valid. Mm-hmm. The way that people don't even understand that, again, this isn't cancer. Mm-hmm. It's the same. Like I said, you have cold, you have flus. If you've normally gotten upper respiratory infections, you know what it feels like. When you go to the doctor and you're like, I think I have an upper respiratory infection, it makes it so much easier for them. Again, knowing doctors who've said, it's nice when people come in with research. Even on TikTok, they said it's nice when people come in with research because it makes everything easier. Mm-hmm. It makes it easier. Like when you come in and you're like, quicker. I think this, they're like, okay, then they can quickly get to the deal instead of dancing around it and taking all this time. And you come in, you're like, I think that this is the situation. They're like, all right, let's test for that.
for context, so like I said, I have sickle cell, right? Diagnosed at 2 days old, been an advocate for a long time, which means I've done a lot of research. I've been to this, that, and the third. But even if I hadn't, right? Because I don't know that I've actually done any research on pneumonia or acute chest syndrome, but I've had pneumonia / acute chest syndrome 7 times, and I've had double pneumonia once. The time I had double pneumonia, I almost died. When I mean I almost died, I mean like the director of the hematology department had to write a letter to the hospital that almost killed me. It was bad. It was like call in the family, say goodbye, right? It was bad. There's not ever been one time where I have gone to the emergency room or hospital and said, I think I have pneumonia, or I'm pretty sure I have acute chest syndrome, and been wrong. Not one time. Not once. So you want to compare it to cancer, this, that, and the third. But the fact of the matter is, every single time I've ever gone to the ER hospital and said, I have pneumonia, I have acute chest, I have been right. And I have been right because if I'm not an expert on anything else, I'm an expert on my body. I'm an expert on myself. Right. And my experiences and everything I know tells me I know what I'm talking about. And I've had ER doctors say, well, that's ridiculous. You can't possibly know that because, oh, sorry. Yep. The x-ray does, in fact, confirm you have pneumonia. We're going to have to keep you.
And
that
also
has happened
the
recently.
People who have thought that they had ADHD then got a diagnosis for ADHD. And here's the fun fact. Even if they don't, what is the harm in people finding ways to cope with how they're living?
You're taking resources away from the people who actually have it.
You mean the zero resources that they give us?
I was going to say, what resources?
More proof that you haven't actually done any research or talked to anybody who actually has autism or is actually on the spectrum or is actually neurodivergent anyway. Ain't no resources.
Yeah, because most of us shouldn't be driving. We can't do it.
We are the resources. Each other. That's even true with sickle cell, right? And like there are actually a handful, a sprinkle of resources there. But when it comes to sickle cell, our community is the resources. That's usually what happens when you have a marginalized a group of people, right? That you're not taking away resources. Nobody feels like it's a slap in the face for somebody to self-diagnose. If anything, it's welcome to the club. How can I help you? What do you want to know? Ask all the questions, ask away, or let me direct you to some other people or resources. Like, come on, man. All y'all got to do is just a little bit of work, just a little bit.
But also, it's okay to say like, oh, a woman must be PMSing, or for a woman to be able to tell that like her period's coming up or something like that, like hormonal changes and different things like that. But that's different though.
Yep. I just want to read this real quick. Imperfectly Me says, community resources are the only resources there are. And my self-diagnosis is how I found community. And they also said, everyone keeps looking the point in the face and denying it. Exactly. Like it's right there. You know, like, I don't know. There really is no, the only harm in self-diagnosing is potentially to the person. It may be using the wrong, accommodations or using the wrong
words.
I can't think of any harm that comes from self-diagnosing except for to the person, to the individual. And again, if you have diagnosed incorrectly and that ain't it, you'll know eventually, right? If you're doing certain things or what, it's not like you can just go get meds. You can't just walk into a doctor's office and be like, hey, by the way, just wanted to tell you I have ADHD. Give me all the Adderall. That's not how it works.
Yeah. It's
so
neurotypical people doing this. It's almost always neurotypical people trying to gatekeep it. Something that they don't even have, trying to gatekeep it. It's wild to me because like you don't even have any of these. And like, why are you so invested in telling everyone that they don't?
No stake for them, but they're the loudest ones. Let's finish this.
Right now, I do feel like he gave Amanda a lot more pushback than I've seen recently. But I think a lot of that came from the commentary of people watching the show, like, yo, Shannon, you gotta ask questions. You have to, So I think a lot of it came from that. But the defending racism comments like, you don't gotta be on the spectrum to be brilliant. I feel like Amanda said, she feels that her father is autistic as well, and that he's brilliant. And you had Shannon say, but I mean, just because he's brilliant don't mean he's on the spectrum. Like it's almost funny how
stupid he is.
I don't want to call this man dumb. I don't think he's dumb, but it's just almost funny how. It's almost funny how dumb he is. Just say it. It's just almost funny how dumb he is when it comes to these subjects, right? But anyway, let's talk about her.
He's dumb, period. It doesn't matter what subject.
She revealed that recently she was diagnosed to be autistic. Now, also in the video too, she talks about how she's just a very literal person, and that is why she feels a lot of people don't like her. Let's listen.
You don't see the feelings of Catelyn Stark at the fucking red writing until you watch the show, because in the writing, it is just a series of events. That is part of my autism. I speak in directs. I speak in linear spaces. I speak in literals. That's part of the reason why people don't like me neither, because I'm literal and I take things literally. So if you say to me, I'm gonna be there at 5, I'm like, why you ain't here at 5? They're like, well, I'm at 5-ish. Well, you should have said 5-ish, because I'm waiting for you at 5.
Let me ask you this. How old were you when you got diagnosed, and did you always feel that you was different and you felt something was wrong?
Well, what's today?
Today is Thursday, the 18th.
So 42 and however many days until I was just recently diagnosed.
Okay.
And this came out of this situation because so many Black women who are autistic said to me, I see you. You need to, and I've always thought, you can look at other interviews. I have mentioned before, like, I think I'm on the spectrum because I'm an 80s baby. This was not really a part of the narrative.
Right.
And as we started seeing more about autism and we start seeing shows about different characters, and I started learning more, like from people like Holly Robinson Peete, I'm like, this feels really like me. But then, I think sometimes we're afraid to learn certain things.
Yeah.
So
60s and 70s, baby, just got what put bed.
So 2 things, right? Because I really want to go back to that literal comment that she made, but she talks about, being diagnosed with autism, and how she also talks in the interview about how getting diagnosed is a very hard thing to do sometimes because of the racism in the medical field. And I think that we really do need to take a pause and think about what she was talking about when she talked about that. Again, Shannon Sharp wasn't the person to have that conversation with. As a Black woman during Black Women's I'm Not One of Your Little Friends month, we know what Black women go through when it's time to give birth. We've seen recently a woman be misdiagnosed with, who was an influencer? She was misdiagnosed with, beauty influencer Jessica Petway died of cervical cancer following misdiagnosis. The 36-year-old died a year after being diagnosed with stage 3 cervical cancer, which doctors originally said was just fibroids, okay? So we know as Black people that the medical industry is not an industry that is favorable for Black people, especially Black women. Our bodies are still so very misunderstood. I saw recently how what's the girl? Women on the Victoria Monet. She was talking about how, so many people were talking about how thick she looked at Coachella because that ass was sitting. And she came forward and she said, hey guys, so I recently found out that I have PCOS. She gained so much weight. If you remember her around the Grammys in February to now in April, it looks like she gained a good 20 pounds. And that's a short amount of time to gain weight. I was just having a conversation over this weekend with some folks about my body and how a lot of times I will juice for a couple days just to keep my weight down. And the conversation was, what weight are you trying to lose? What weight are you keeping down? It's like, bro, our bodies don't function all the same. It is very easy for me to gain weight. And I remember asking my doctor if I had PCOS, and she was telling me that I should go to a nutritionist and do this and that. It wasn't just something easily that she could diagnose, right? And so I'm thinking about, if something like that is so hard to diagnose.
Yes, it is actually.
ADHD. Imagine
if she would do the work.
Autism, something that I know I've never been diagnosed for, but a lot of you guys sometimes will notice how ashy my hands are. Something I never said to you guys, sometimes my skin starts to split and it will bleed, and that is eczema. I have extreme eczema on my hands. It is something that I developed in the last couple of years, and finding different moisturizers, finding different, products that are better.
Hey, what's easier? What's easier to diagnose than autism? PCOS and eczema.
Yeah, they can literally just because your doctor doesn't listen to you, Jesse, no hate, just because your doctor doesn't listen to you when you were sitting there thinking that you might have PCOS and they're like, oh, just change your diet, which is what they say to all women, doesn't mean you don't have PCOS. It just means that they didn't want to do it. That's all. Right. They were like,
right.
It means they were discounting you, which you just said.
It's an issue for me.
My bad.
Oh, no, it's okay.
But I think I'm there. I think I'm good. I'm getting better. And this was the first winter season that I didn't see any splits in my skin. Yes, it will get sometimes my hands will get inflamed, especially this hand. It will get inflamed and it will get so rocky. It will feel like my hand will feel like sand. Our bodies are not a monolith. Okay, Black bodies are not a monolith. Being diagnosed is for a lot of things costs a lot of money. It's very costly. And so I think that that's what Amanda was speaking to when she was talking about getting her autism diagnosis. She kind of talked about the racism in the medical field in the interview. Now, post the interview, Amanda fucks this up. Watching Amanda fuck up her support in less than 24 hours has been astonishing to me, because when she spoke up about having autism, so many people were like, oh my gosh, you have autism, I feel seen. Oh my gosh, you have this, I feel seen. There's been some of you when I talked to you guys about my HPV scare. Some of y'all were in the comments, and even till this day, the other day I was telling you guys I felt a lot of pain, and there were some of y'all in the comments, Jess, you need to go check, maybe it's your cervix. Y'all be feeling seen, right? And so she was for the support of people supporting her, wow, I'm autistic too, I feel seen, I'm neurodivergent, this is my experience. So many people were rallying behind her. And then she gets on live and she does this.
They cut out at the end, he was asking, no, I have not been clinically diagnosed by a doctor because I'm not paying $10,000 to do that. And most people will tell you that at this age, you don't need a clinical diagnosis in that sense. And I think that's the other thing. It's we are so conditioned here in this nation to really only consider something in one kind of way. And I will get back to that.
And this clip.
So you mean she supported the community?
On Twitter, Threads, everywhere. And so blogs started to pick it up. And you have Baller Alert who posted it, right? Shade Room posted it. Every blog posted it, right? Because, hello, you said you were diagnosed, but in this live, you're saying you self-diagnosed, right? And so people are like, well, what is it? Like, so do you really have autism or not? What is it? And so you have people posting, and then she saw the baller post.
So now the class act,
Like they're
baller alert, yet
mutually
another black space,
exclusive.
because there is such a dedicated effort to degrade me and defame me. It is beyond my scope of comprehension. Wants to suggest that because my autism diagnosis did not come from a clinician, that it is not valid. What's not valid is people speaking on things that they don't know about. And my autism diagnosis
It's
is
so
not for you all to discuss.
frustrating.
It's not up for your debate. And anyone who is speaking on or trying to invalidate diagnosis that comes outside of a clinician is only revealing that they actually don't know anything about autism diagnosis or autism. So
Period. Like I don't, and how do you say that she fucked it up? Because I personally feel like she advocated.
Exactly what I took the words right out of my mouth. God forbid she speak up for herself. God forbid she try to advocate. God forbid she be honest and transparent about the self-diagnosis and be correct about it and be accurate. Because at her big age, what is the point of a clinical diagnosis? Unless you just want it for yourself, there is no point of going to pay. And people in the comments were, it costs $100. It costs $300 at the most. Well, somebody else said, well, it did cost me $28, because somebody was like, there's no way it costs anywhere near that much. Somebody else said, well, it did cost $2,800 to do that. And they said, oh, well, thank you for the numbers. I can see it costing up to $10,000 if you do not have
She's in California.
She's in California. There are steps. It's not quick. Go to your OBGYN, get a PCOS diagnosis. You can get that in about 1 or 2 appointments. Eczema, you can get that in 1 appointment. How do I know? I had it, right? I've been seen for both. That's a quick diagnosis. Me, the ADHD, that took 3 appointments and I didn't even want them.
And people don't understand how insurance works. The way that if you want your insurance to cover it, you have to talk to your primary care doctor, who then has to give you a referral. And then that person gives you a referral to this person. And that person gives you a referral to this person. Then you have to have all this time for testing.
Yep.
Yes. And you have to take all this time off of work. So that means if you don't have like sick time and vacation time to take, you can, once you start realizing the enormous amount of hurdles that they put in your way to basically make money, it doesn't make any sense. Like, I am 44 years old. What good does it do me after I already knew before I went and got my official ADHD diagnosis? I knew I had ADHD. I knew it when I went in there. I was like, I got ADHD. Help me out. She does the test. What do I have? ADHD. So I'm aware of the autism. It does nothing for me to go through the whole rigmarole to confirm what I already know. And again, I'm in Texas, still haven't found a place that's really doing it for adults. Like, every time I look it up, it's children. And I'm like, you know what? It's fine. I'll live my life. It doesn't make a difference to me anyway. I know I'm coping with it in the ways that I need to. I'm living my life easier. My mom is finally starting to understand it because she took me to HEB. And I don't know if you've ever been to an HEB, but lessons learned for her.
There's a creator on here. I just looked it up. Courtney Mermaid is the name of the YouTube channel. They talk about, I don't remember their pronouns. They speak about the process of getting diagnosed over a couple of videos. It was a long, drawn out process. If you want to see somebody go from self-diagnosis of, I'm pretty sure I have it, I have a binder full of things, I've done all of these things, I've taken it to a doctor, I've gotten all the tests, I went to this appointment, did this, I did, like, they lay it out. And it cost them multiple thousands of dollars. 10,000 could be hyperbole, but I could easily see that being an accurate number.
Well, if you take into account the premiums that you have to pay for the privilege of having a doctor to go to a doctor in the first place, easily.
The way my insurance works, I have to meet a certain deductible before they will pay for it, right? Mm-hmm. So even if it is covered by insurance, there's steps to that. And like you said, you need a referral. So that means I got to go to my regular doctor first, and then I have to pay a copay for that, unless I have a deductible, and there's copay plus more in that co-insurance or whatever. And then I have to go be seen by another doctor, right? And then that has a copay. Like, there are multiple steps to this. And there's nothing that comes with a clinical diagnosis except for self-validation or others feeling like you're valid. And that is not worth $10,000 to me.
You know what? You know the statistics about autistic people being unemployed. If with an autism diagnosis, I got a stipend, I would go ahead and fight tooth and nail for that diagnosis. I sure would.
In a heartbeat.
But until they pay for me.
You know what's not covered under the ADA or excuse me, disability in terms of getting paid for disability? Autism, unless you have a certain level of support needs. You don't automatically just get a disability check just for saying you have autism. You have to have a certain level of support needs. And if Amanda is clearly able and capable of working and earning money, she's not getting a check. She's not getting any resources from having a clinical diagnosis. Anyways, I think that's it. Let me see if there's, I can't remember if there's anything else.
I just want to once again, thank you all for the love. And this is further proof of why we as Black people, particularly in Black media spaces, we are.
And this was Baller Alert's response. Like, girl, we're just posting what you posted. We're just posting what you posted. We're not like.
Every month,
but y'all spend so much time trying to like, this is what bothers me about all of this, is y'all would rather spend all of this time trying to debunk, embarrass, and humiliate someone.
Yep.
Instead of actually do like a smidgen of research to understand them. So you spent all of this time, all y'all made all these videos, and every single one of y'all worked your ass off to make sure that Amanda looks like an ass and she's stupid and she doesn't know what's going on. Is she diagnosed or is she not? I love that y'all like to spend the time doing that. It's wild to me. Like, what purpose does it serve her to be? Like, it's the same way you see people going like, everybody thinks that they're autistic and ADHD these days on TikTok. They're doing it for clout. And I'm like, what clout am I possibly getting? Nobody thinks I'm cooler. Nobody's more interested. My channel didn't suddenly blow up. You know what I mean? Like,
if anything, there are more cons than pros, right? Because I don't know, again, like I don't know of any pros except for, again, self-validation and being able to say it to other people so that other people feel valid about your diagnosis, right? Because otherwise, Audra said at the beginning of the stream, there are places that you cannot even go to if you've been clinically diagnosed because they won't take you because they feel like you might be a drain on their system, right? So there are far more cons than there are pros to getting a clinical diagnosis. Okay.
I think it's because she's conventionally attractive.
I think that's it. I think there are a number of things. Yeah, I think that's one of them. I agree. I think one thing that I always say, this is what we said with Black and Sick, because we got a whole bunch of racism. Madison asked earlier about the platform Black and Sick and our experience, and I've not received more racist like comments and threats or whatever since launching than I have since launching this platform back in November. Okay.
God dang.
And yeah, like it's intense, right? And I would just say, you know what, it doesn't matter. I mean, I think we've said everything that needs to be said. I wish people would ask more questions. That's really where I was going with this, is that people make the assumption and they think they know better than they do. They've not done a lick of research, which is something that I do not understand, because I doubt myself so much, right, that I'm researching things I already know I know. Right. The moment I come across something and I say, that doesn't sound right. That doesn't. Prime example. Today, they were talking about Kev on stage, and Angel was talking about that chick Angel. We're talking about Caitlin Clark, the WNBA, and somebody in the comments said, WNBA team has not won a back-to-back championship since the Houston Commons. Nobody's done that. And I immediately went, no. The Minnesota Lynx would like a word, right? But I paused myself because I thought I knew. I was like, the Minnesota Lynx got 4 championships. What are you talking about? They've definitely been back-to-back. And I went and I Googled it before I left the comment. And I guess what? I was wrong, right? Because they went every other year. They went it was like 2011, 2013, 2015, 2017. So they didn't go back to back. But that is my natural inclination, is to stop and do research, right? Like it's the same reason. Like I don't just immediately assume I know better than somebody, even though I know a lot about the WNBA. I've been actually following it for the longest, and I still stopped, paused, and went and did the research. But people aren't doing that. They're not asking questions. They know that they haven't been taught anything about autism. They know they haven't done any research, and yet they are so willing to speak with such authority. And I'm not just talking about Jesse. I'm talking about people in the comments. I'm talking about everyday people. I'm talking about other creators, people with large platforms causing harm. That's why we're doing this. We're not just calling this out just to be calling it out for the sake of calling it out. Because anybody that knows me knows, like I said, I will ride for Black women, and I have a policy about not talking negatively about other Black women online. Like that's just my personal policy. That's my personal ethos, right? Like even if it's Candace Owens, because you know why? Other people will do it for me. Other people have it. Like I just have this principle that, you know, I don't really need to do it. I don't really need to call it other Black women, because they're going to get plenty of that online. And yet this was so important because it is so dangerous.
Yeah.
And it has the potential to cause so much harm. Not only the therapy, and that's what's really disappointing is because, I mean, if you think about it, the person that we played who really got the information right was the white dude. And then the two people that we watched that got it so wrong were the black women. My God, that's disappointing.
It
that
is very disappointing.
makes my brain folds itch.
Like,
it is so disappointing.
Like I said, I live very firmly in the ideology that we are very much informed by the media we consume. Media informs our everyday life every single day, even though people don't like to admit to that. And there's like, I have 1,001 examples all the time. Like I could always go, okay, well, if you don't think media impacts your life, then why do you do a public proposal? It's because TV and movies said that was something that you should do because people did not do that before. It was not a public affair, so I think that people have watched these shows and these movies, and this is what has told them, this is what autism looks like. And if it doesn't look like that, that's why we're all, regardless of race in this situation, getting told, you don't look autistic. And you're like, what is that supposed to look like exactly?
That's why I said I think it's because she's conventionally attracted. Because I really feel like it was that one picture with like she had a full face of makeup that outlet chose to use, and I don't know that plus the fact that she's incredibly intelligent and
not according to the people in the comments, she's not smart at all.
Yeah,
I feel like people are intimidated by her, and just being smart and being pretty combined, it's like there's a stereotype of what autism looks like, and for her to be a pretty smart Black woman and be confident and be self-assured, like,
and she does not let these people drag her down.
Yeah, it's a recipe for invalidation, and the fact that she's not only all of those things, but is willing to advocate for herself. It's a recipe for this, and for people to diminish the, and I didn't understand because Jessie Woo starts off this video saying like, you spend too much time worrying about who doesn't like you and you need to let that go and that doesn't matter. But then I just watched a video from her today it was one about Nene Leakes, I think, in like Portia or the house. I don't know the housewives, but I think that's their name, Portia. So forgive me if I'm incorrect. But saying that Portia had said to the producers that she can't work with Nene Leakes, so they needed to replace her and blah, 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 blah. And Jessie came on here and said, well, yeah, that's not cool because, you don't want having a bad reputation or saying one thing, somebody not liking you can really cause harm to your career. How were you able to understand that? But here you can't extend
it's because she's parallel to the point.
Yeah.
She's parallel to the point.
And like, this very much reminds me as I have connections to all things, but the whole situation, there was a situation a long while back with Michaela and some guy with a bronzer. And the point that I kept trying to make was
TikToker.
Yes. And I was like, just because you don't like someone, Michaela, doesn't make the other person right. The bronzer guy. And I was like, she can lie and she can do all that, can be true. But just because you don't like her doesn't mean this guy is right. He is incorrect. And this is what happens all the time in these commentary spaces. They don't like someone. And instead of them just saying and mentioning their bias from jump, I'm not really a fan of Amanda Seales. So that way, up front that like their bias is going to show, like, because everybody has a bias. I don't care what they say. I hate when people are like, this is unbiased. No, it's not. You have one. But so instead of just saying that and making it, we do this. We have this like harmful, gross rhetoric that comes around trying to make her look unintelligent, trying to make her look like she is a liar, that like implied lying there. Like, well, are you? And then fucking up her whole thing. And I'm like, she didn't though. She advocated for everybody out there who has felt this way, young and old, and gave them a space to feel comfortable and confident to be okay with being like, I am an autistic person. I have an autistic community and I feel good about that.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting? I started this whole thing not a fan of Amanda Seales, right? Didn't hate her,
Same.
but I
No.
remember seeing some of her content before, and I remember she said something and was like, sort of, I can't remember exactly what it was, but it had something to do with colorism, and I was like, you're not as woke as you think you are. And so I remember just being like, okay, Amanda Seales is not for me, but it has nothing to do with like how she comes off or her being off-putting. It was what she said, right? That I was like, you might get there one day, but you're not quite there yet, right? Like, I came into this not a fan and very ready to hear what everybody had to say about this not likability, right? Especially because, again, there are a number of players in this story that I know and have experience and cross paths with, including the publicist that's from the Emmy party, right? Like, I was her intern, but also I opened when I was doing music in New Orleans. I opened for Amanda Seales back when she was going by Amanda Diva. I don't remember any. That was not my experience. This whole she's a diva, she's unlikable, I don't remember that. That was not my experience with her. And we played a video last stream about this where somebody said, I worked with Amanda Seales on this MTV show. She was nothing but nice. But what I did witness was the producers try to get me to speak bad about her because she was on her phone. Right. What I did witness was the producers coming up to me saying, hey, ask her about this. Aren't you mad that she's on her phone and not paying attention to you? And the girl being like, no, I don't care. Like, I'm assuming she's handling business. Right. Like, I've seen that. I've heard stories. But Jessie Wu even talks about a situation like that in another video. Like I said, I've been binging like her content. Right. Because I am a huge fan of her now. Right. So like, I know these things happen in the industry. Like one thing that I will always say is that when I started working in the industry, when I moved down here and started working in Hollywood, I learned things that I to this day wish I did not know. So I believe, that list that the therapist read off about for no reasons, blah, 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 for no reason. One, Amanda never said it was for no reason. For many of these things, she gives a reason. Even for the Emmy party thing, she said, I was kicked out. And then Issa Rae's publicist called me and said, I had you removed. Don't you want to know why? No, she said, I had you removed because I don't like you. Don't you want to know why I don't like you? And Amanda basically was like, click, that's none of my business, which is how I was. That's how I was raised. My mom brought me up and said, what somebody else says about you to somebody else
of your business.
Is none of your business. Until they bring it directly to you, it is not your business. So I understand that.
Yeah, I live like that. If you don't like me, that's none of my business. I don't give a shit.
You have to
What
tell
difference
me.
does that make to me?
Like, you got to tell me, to this day, like, we had an editor that was working with us at the beginning of this project who just ghosted the project, like didn't say anything to anybody, just stopped responding to messages. Did I do something? I don't know, maybe, but nobody has said anything directly to me. And I've made it abundantly clear, come to me like, hey, we'll talk about anything, whatever, blah, blah, blah. I'm like overly cautious, probably too cautious, right? Like to a fault. But like, if you haven't said it to me, I don't know. And you can't assume that I know. I don't make assumptions. I intentionally do not assume. I don't do hints. And I am a very literal person. She talks about that here too, like where she says something like, Amanda, you said you were literal. Why didn't you understand this thing? And I'm like, okay, now you don't know how literal communication works. Okay. All right. Anyways, there's more. There's about like 50 minutes more, like 40 something minutes more. But we're not going to get into that. I would recommend y'all watch it. We're going to add links to this comment to the description. We have a full playlist called Neurodivergent in Black. We're going to have these conversations again. This is going to be ongoing because unfortunately, there's no shortage of media to which we can react and respond to and correct and all of these things. And so if either of y'all want to come back, Madison, Audra, we would love to have you back.
100%.
Dope. So we're going to continue these conversations. I don't know if it's going to be like our very next one, but we'll figure that out. But we will have a link to the playlist in there. It's got a bunch of stuff. Let me see. I'm going to see if I can pull it up in a second, but it's got a bunch of stuff. And we're going to have a link to this video. And again, my main goal for this was our main goal for this conversation was education, increased awareness, but also like correcting the narrative and to help other neurodivergent folks, especially neurodivergent Black people, Black women, femmes, non-binary folks, to stop catching strays. Because we were catching strays left. I remember just hopping on threads and being like, what? Whoa, wait a minute. How did we get in this? Like, no, that's not what's happening here. So I'm going to let y'all, final word from either of y'all, Kimmy, Madison, Audra, if y'all want to, any final sentiment, any last thing you want to say, anything you want to plug, please drop your channel, your information, all that stuff. We'll try to put, Kimmy, if you can try to catch them and put them on screen, I'm going to try to catch the others and put them on screen. But go ahead. Any final things that y'all want to say please. Whoever wants to go first.
Sorry, I was typing my link in the chat.
I was gonna let you go, Madison, because like I'm wordy.
Really struggling right now.
No worries. Y'all can if y'all want to say it or spell it out.
She'll probably
You went the opposite way.
No, listen, StreamYard can be StreamYard. Well, you can find me. I'm Audra Reins everywhere. Listen, I just found out that Past Me was super smart, and I gave myself the whole week off next week, so I'll be streaming all week on Twitch.
Oh, nice.
Playing some video games. You can find me on YouTube.
Now, are you Audra Reins or the Audra Reins? I can't remember.
I switched it all just to Audra Reins. It used to be the Audra Reins, but now I'm just putting everything. So here's the thing.
Okay.
If you it's gonna do at the Audra Reins on YouTube, and I just left it as that. But like my channel name is just Audra Reins.
Gotcha.
And
but
then
everywhere else it's just Audra Reins.
Yeah, and
Can I just say, as a former brand manager, can I just say thank you for having all of your channel, your usernames be the same? It just drives me mad when I see like the Audra Reins, Audra Reins, another Audra Reins official. Like, when people just have like 51. Like, I love just being like hella swanky everywhere, black and sick.
It's literally
everywhere.
just like my middle name. Like that's
branding
all I
101.
did. I just took my middle name and like made it, That's why, because people ask, like, why is it spelled that way? And I'm like, because Reina is my middle name.
That's what I was about to say. I was wondering if it was Reigns, like as in queen, or okay. Nice. Okay, so any upcoming? So you're gonna be streaming all next week, because you're off. Amen.
And Smutter Day is on Saturday, which is we'll see if I get it done. But Smutter Day,
you just dropped a new video yesterday, I think, too, right?
I think so. It was yesterday or Monday. I don't understand.
It might have been Monday
right now.
It might have been Monday. I've been up for a while. I work at night, so anyway, it don't matter. That's less about me. Okay, so Audra Reins is going to be streaming on Twitch. You can also catch them on YouTube. Highly recommend. The live chats are fun and awesome. Even if I don't get to participate, I get to lurk, and Audra is constantly keeping me company, either while I'm working or when I'm drifting off to sleep. Highly recommend. Let's see, Madison. Tell us where we can find you.
I have TikTok. Okay. My TikTok is Black Sapphic. Sapphic is SAPPIC. And I'm on my way to 10,000 followers. Kind of happened out of nowhere. So if you'd like to help me get there.
Amen.
Yeah, I post about sociology type stuff, psychology and neurodivergence and a little bit of jokes here and there.
Amen. Love it. Also highly recommend the TikTok. Like I said, I haven't had a chance to go through all of it. I had to actually stop myself because I was supposed to be preparing for this stream, and I was actually binging Madison's content. Thanks a lot, Madison.
I'm already following you.
Period.
Okay. I'm already following you. I told you, if I see you black, I follow you immediately.
Exactly. I'm like you have to say something real reckless for me, like unfollow, unsubscribe. Otherwise, it's like a default automatic follow, subscribe.
Yeah, you'll just be black being like, hi, and I'll be like, follow.
But no, seriously, I do recommend a lot of their content. There, a lot of Madison's content, all kind of stuff, commentary on all type of stuff, and I really, it's fun, but it's also really educational and informative. I think it's really straightforward. I sometimes it bothers me, even though like I can keep up when people are like really wordy or like they're using big words unnecessarily, right? Like I can keep up, but it also is kind of annoying when it just feels like you're being maybe pretentious, and I think maybe some people maybe not even do it intentionally. But my point is, Madison's content is really, it's clear, it's direct, it's easy to understand, and I really appreciate that. So it's really accessible. Anybody who knows me knows accessibility is always going to be my number one priority, and it's the thing that I concern myself with the most, and I believe that their content is very, very accessible. So highly recommend.
Tgoing you. That was nice.
And you're so pretty. I'm just going to keep saying it with your mane, with your gorgeous mane.
I would love, we're going to talk about in another conversation why there's such a major, like why the overlap or the Venn diagram of like neurodivergent and queer is almost a circle. We got to talk about that. I want to know. Kimmy, anything else? Kimmy is our stage manager for those who don't know. Also,
Good
like
job,
our social media consultant comes through. Usually Kimmy is the one handling the media, and I mean, for those who've been in other chats like Boss Attorney Breeze chat, you guys know Kimmy is like the MVP of the stream, comes through, handles it, is usually in the background. So I really appreciate her being here. I wanted her to chime in on some of the things that we were talking about today, because this is stuff that we've talked about quite a lot, including the whole police encounter. So and Kimmy, if I haven't said thank you enough, thank you again for being here, for coming through, for also holding me down during that whole police encounter, and for being here tonight, for doing work in the background, but also being present at the same time, multitasking like a beast. I appreciate you. Any last words?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I learned so much, and also I'm gonna tattle on you a little bit. I know there's a lot of streamers who will say like, "Oh, we're so happy to have you," yada yada. But like backstage, she was so excited when you guys said you were coming. This is I'm sorry, but
not you turning around like
so fast.
And so thank you guys so much for coming. Smalls, thank you so much for having me here at backstage. I mean, I might get in trouble.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
I really adore being able to help so much. You've created such an awesome platform and content and all that stuff. So I'm gonna get mushy.
Yeah, we're not gonna do that. We're not gonna do that.
I'm like emotions.
Yeah, no, yeah, we don't do that. We don't do that. I said when I watched the police video, I was like, oh, I don't want to see this, because it was like the first time in my life. I'm in my 30s, like mid 30s. I don't know. Something up there. And I was like, this is the first time in my life I've ever seen myself cry. I don't like it. Let's not do this again. But yeah, okay. So y'all, thank you guys for joining us. I appreciate y'all being here. Like I said, I am a fan of both of y'all, like legit, genuinely. And so I'm so grateful that you guys were able to join us tonight. And I look forward to having this conversation with y'all again. Everybody who came and hung out with us in the chat as we recorded this, we appreciate y'all being here, especially those on the East Coast or in Central Time, especially Madison and Audra, because I'm the one on West Coast time. So Audra, Madison, Kimmy on East Coast and Central Time, I really appreciate y'all. I'm so grateful for y'all for having this conversation, helping to set the record straight, and hopefully to make some major positive change in the world of neurodivergence and accessibility in general. I really appreciate y'all. I'm Smalls. We're gonna sign out now. Waheguru ka kosa, waheguru ki fate. Sashri akal, y'all. Peace.
Have a good night.
Bye. Thank you.